What is up, everybody? Welcome to Pub Sports Radio and welcome to Stat Diggers for UFC 290. We have Alexander Volkanovski going against Yair Rodriguez. We have, I believe, a 14-fight card now. We have Jack Della Maddalena getting a new opponent, Josiah Harrell, and then, 13 other fights. It's a really good card, Weezy. Are you looking forward to this one?
Definitely looking forward to this. That main card is fire. And then we've got some really interesting prospects on the undercard here. A matchup of veterans between Lawler and Price, and some really interesting prospects like Cameron Simon and Tatsuro Taira and Jack Della Maddalena. And then we've got the rematch of Menifield and Crute, and that fight was an absolute barn burner the last time. So it's a really good card from a fan's perspective. From a gambling perspective, we're going to have to really kind of dig deep to find our spots, because these lines are juiced this week. All these favorites getting a ton of steam, and it's just all going in one direction. So we're going to have to really kind of pick our spots this week and be careful as to how we approach this card as gamblers, because that's always what it is at the end of the day. You know, do we profit from the card or not? So we're going to have to work hard to find our spots this week.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's a card where we have one fight where the favorite is better than minus 200, and that is the Alonzo Menifield Jimmy Crute fight, which is about a pick 'em. Other than that, we have minus 200 favorites, minus 400 favorites, minus 900 favorites, minus 1,400 favorites, and then Jack Della Maddalena probably another minus 1,000 favorites. So a lot of dogs have been barking as of late, like these last couple cards. This card, I'm not so sure. I think this is a card where it's a big setup card. I feel like the UFC is trying to set up a lot of these opponents, and we'll talk a lot about those matchups. But yeah, should be a good show tonight. Typically, Weezy, you know, I have my writer behind the scenes write some material for me in terms of some potential jokes for the card. This card, there's not really many funny matchups. Like there's no Alexander Romanov, there's no Luana Carolina. None of that. I mean, there's just a bunch of good fights. So I don't know if we can pull up any Instagrams for, there is one Instagram I will pull up later in the show. So at least we get one, and we have a special haircut to talk about. But other than that, we're going to talk some fights and some very good fights. Weezy, tough card last night, but me and you both came out with some really good nights last night.
Yeah, man. For me, I think I hit all of my bets except for one. Yeah. Well, no, I had one that washed. I had 2.5 units on the finish only prop for Blagoy Ivanov at plus 200. And that one did not cash, but I didn't lose either. You know, it was just a wash because the fight went to decision. My loss was Rinat Fakhretdinov winning by decision. Was that, you know, that one didn't even come close to even getting out of the first round, over in 55 seconds. A guy who couldn't finish Andreas Mihalidis, he absolutely just went through Kevin Lee like a hot knife through butter. Absolutely glorious performance there by Fakhretdinov. I wonder who he gets next, because he has looked clinical in these three fights that he's had thus far in the UFC. So big ups to Fakhretdinov. And then, yeah, dude, Grant Dawson made it look easy, Brady. He made it look very, very easy, doing exactly what he does every single fight, getting the takedown and almost immediately getting to his opponent's back, and then just staying there for the rest of the round, hunting for the submission. Some of the easiest money of the night was Grant Dawson. Cashed that 1 unit bet at plus 110. Cashed the under 3.5 rounds in the main event at plus 120 for 1 unit. And then I had a 2-unit parlay on the chalkiest bets of the week. The under 1.5 rounds in the Brito Wilson fight, and the under 1.5 rounds in the Ferreira Ruziboyev fight. So, yeah, up 3.31 units on only 7.5 units of action. So a 44% return on investment. Got back what I had lost over the last 2 events. So really looking to kind of keep that ball rolling this week and find some more plus money spots here to stack some more cash tickets like flapjacks. And I know you had a good night too, Brady.
Yeah, I had a really good night. What I enjoyed about last night, Weezy, is it was just a textbook card from a betting perspective. It was a tough card, and I just really picked my spots. Like, I had a bunch of different leans. Like, I was going to bet the Rinat Fakhretdinov over 2.5, right? I was going to bet the Benoit Saint-Denis over 1.5. Luckily, I don't bet overs because both of those would have lost, but I was really close to pulling the trigger on both of those. But I had 2 money line bets last week. I was on Grant Dawson as well. Got him at plus 122. I didn't feel amazing about it. I thought it was a close fight, but Grant Dawson ended up looking like minus 1,000. I guess my confidence rose once I saw this picture of Grant Dawson.
Yeah, dude, that's a great picture, dude.
Yeah.
I mean, great suit, great pose.
Yeah.
A talented photographer, because it really, got Grant's best side there. Everything about that picture is a 10 out of 10. Just like everything about Grant Dawson's performance last night was a 10 out of 10. I mean, you want to talk about just absolutely destroying a top 10 opponent in Demiris Magulov. 12 and a half minutes of control time, it was just a great performance by Grant Dawson, and that's a great picture there.
Yeah, so I saw that and I had to pull the trigger at plus money. Beat some line movement then, and yeah, I was expecting like some back takes, Ismagulov gives up his back, but I wasn't expecting 14 minutes of control time. But yeah, shout out to Grant Dawson. My other bet, Weezy, was Luana Carolina. Luana Carolina, plus 185. I teeter-totter all week. Do I pull the trigger? Do I not? And I just thought to myself, if I don't pull the trigger and Luana wins this fight, I'll be very upset with myself. Because last week or 2 weeks ago now, I didn't pull the trigger on Dumas. And I guess, sometimes you just got to, if the line's off, just pull the trigger no matter how terrible. Oh my gosh, Luana Carolina is. That fight was sweaty. But hey, plus 185 dog. Luana Carolina came through. I had 3 losses on the night. I had the Magomedov scorecards, no action. Beat a lot of line movement on it, but didn't matter. Lost that for half a unit. Blagoy Ivanov inside the distance, half a unit, plus 350. I want to shout out to Alexander Romanov for going out there with an incredible performance. And then I lost on Melissa Gatto inside the distance, plus 150, not even close. Very disappointing performance from Gatto. No takedowns. I thought the fight would hit the mat. It did not. And then the other wins were, I had the Sean Strickland Magomedov fight, ends by knockout, half a unit, plus 120. I had 1 unit on the Max Griffin, the point spread, plus 3.5, minus 110. That was sweaty. I didn't think that would have cashed. I thought Max Griffin clearly won the first round, but with these judges, you never know. But the judges got it right. The judges got it perfect and cashed out plus 3.5. And then I also had the square chalky parlay that you did, the same exact one, the under 1.5 in the Ferreira and Brito fight, but it hit pretty easily. Came out at plus 100 there. So yeah, only 5 units risked, which I liked, and then plus 2.55 units. And I just want to say, what a piss poor performance from Magomedov, and what piss poor matchmaking from the UFC. Like, I was breaking down that fight, and I was like, why is Abus getting a 5-round fight with Sean Strickland? Like, the guy never fights, and when he does fight, he gets in and gets out, and just a terrible performance. But probably one of the worst main events of the year, and that's in a year where we have Holly Holm, Bueno Silva. That's next week, right? Bueno Silva, Holly Holm.
Yeah, that's the 15th. Yeah, that's that, after this card.
That fight makes more sense than Abus getting a main event slot. So terrible performance from a couple people. Melissa Gatto, terrible performance. Blagoy Ivanov, terrible performance. Ivana Petrovic, terrible performance. Abus Magomedov, terrible performance. A lot of terrible performances last week, Weezy.
Yeah, man, and I'm not thrilled with my performance either, because like that Luana Carolina line made no sense at plus 180, plus 185. Benoit Saint Denis at plus 260. I was looking at that all week, and I'm like, man, there's a path for this guy. He can wrestle. He can get to dudes' backs, and when he does that, he wins the round or potentially gets submissions. And I feel like I left a lot of money on the table, Brady, but also at the same time, I was looking at that over 1.5 for the Benoit Saint Denis fight. I was looking at that over 2.5 for the Renat Fakhretdinov fight. Dude, I gave out a 4-leg prize picks play on my YouTube channel. 3 of the legs hit. The only one that didn't hit was the over 14.75 minutes for the Renat Fakhretdinov fight, and that fight finished in less than a minute. Just wasn't a predictable result. But on to the next. Hey, we're both winners. Let's make it 2 weeks in a row here for me, and however many weeks in a row it's been for you, because you've been on fire this year, dude.
Well, I had a little bit of off week the last week, but yeah, it's been a good year thus far, and looking to continue it here with 290. I do have 3 bets thus far, and I think you have one bet thus far. So we'll talk about that and much, much more. Before we get into, if you guys can please leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel. Pub Sports Radio, we go live every Sunday. Next week it'll be Monday, but typically every Sunday for some stat diggers, breaking down the card nice and early for you guys. I do want to shout out the chat before we get started. We got Dixon Cider, which, by the way, Dixon Cider, I finally get his nickname because I slowed it down in my head. And it's not good. Dix, you guys can do it on your own, but it took me a while. And I've known Dixon for a while now, and I finally caught on. So shout out to Dixon Cider. And I can't. It doesn't sound the same anymore after you hear it for the first time. But anyway, we got Mushroom, we got Propaholic, we got Victor de Jesus, we got Rem Dog, we got Ice Viking, we got Bob. We have Andrew G, we got Nick, we got Link Whale, we got Cole Stein, we got Snap It, Karthlos, Kalu 916, Dave, we got our guy Tim in the chat, we got Melon. It's been a while since we've seen Melon, huh? We got Kristen, we got SD TNT, we got Sean in the chat, we got Kid Kick, Mr. D, we got Anthony, we got Snerius, we got Propaholic, we got who else we got here? Local Man Shakes Fist, we got KVOTHE MMA. What is up, guys? All right. Oh, and by the way, I will be attending this card, and I will be going to UFC X, is where you can meet the fighters, take pictures, all that. I was very upset to see that Liang Na is not going to be at UFC X, Weezy.
What?
Yeah.
Really? I mean, is this International Fight Week?
It's International Fight Week, and I read
they don't have Liang that. No, I mean, you probably read it wrong.
I mean, they have Ashley Yoder, the spider,
the spider monkey.
Yeah, they have Kyle Bahayo.
Oh yeah, dude, yeah, because we were gonna get that tattoo, you and me, the free spirit across the throat. That'd be pretty cool, man. Yeah, and Kyle's still undefeated in the UFC, man. He's looking good.
Sean Strickland's there. You got Stipe.
Oh, that'll be fun.
Vanessa Demopoulos.
Go
decent.
Those are some good names.
No Liang Na, no Jessica Andrade, so a little upset.
I mean, it is what it is. What about Virna? Is Virna Jandiroba going to be there?
Virna's not there, sadly. So,
damn it. Well, they do the best they can.
Yeah. All right, Weezy. 14 fights. We'll touch on this one real quick. We don't have a line. It just got announced recently. It's a fight that, quite frankly, it couldn't make any less sense, to be honest. But we have Jack Della Maddalena going against the Muscle Hamster. We have the Muscle Hamster, 24 years old. I'm not even going to say his name. It's the Muscle Hamster. He's 24 years old, 5'7" with a 67-inch reach. Jack Della Maddalena, 26 years old, 5'11" with a 73-inch reach. We have the Muscle Hamster, 2 years younger. Jack Della Maddalena has a 4-inch height advantage and a 6-inch reach advantage. The Muscle Hamster is a lightweight coming up a weight class here to take on one of the most hyped fighters in the UFC right now. And there was rumors circulating, apparently Kevin Holland wanted to step in, which I knew for a fact that wasn't happening. Buckley was going to step in, which I actually thought it might happen because Buckley made a tweet today saying UFC 290, here I come, something like that. And apparently Buckley's a phony, right, Weezy? Because he completely lied. And then in steps the Muscle Hamster, undefeated, out of Ohio, Grove City, BJJ. There's not much to say. I mean, it should be Jack Della Maddalena. It should be Jack Della Maddalena probably by first round knockout. I see you changed it on this. I love it.
Yeah, gotta have it, man.
But Jack Della Maddalena is probably going, if I had to guess, he's probably going to be the second biggest favorite on this card, right behind Bo Nickal and then right ahead of Tetsuro Taira, who's minus 900. So I think he's around the minus 1,000 range. Probably not a lot of ways to make money. The under's probably going to be juiced. Jack Della Maddalena gets the first round knockout, but the Muscle Hamster is in the UFC. He's doing the UFC a favor stepping in here. The UFC there's probably a lot of other options, but they chose the Muscle Hamster to go in there and probably get his ass shaved. Weezy, what are your thoughts on this fight?
Yeah, and the Muscle Hamster just fought 16 days ago, and that fight went into the third round, over 2 minutes into the third round. So this kid just fought 12 and a half minutes in CFFC 16 days ago. So just a little over 2 weeks ago, stepping up and taking this fight on short notice. This kid is a lightweight, and he's going to be stepping up a weight class on short notice, quick turnaround, 2 weight cuts in 3 weeks to fight who? Jack Della Maddalena, a guy with bricks for hands who's got incredibly good boxing, really good stand-up. landing 8.66 strikes per minute at distance, only absorbing 4.91, a positive 3.76 distance striking differential. He attempts 18.27 distance strikes per minute, 47.4% accuracy, and 71% defense. So unless the muscle hamster is coming out here and getting takedowns in every single round and pushing a pace, I mean, it's pretty easy to see Madalena finding this kid's chin, showing him what welterweight power is all about, showing him what high-level striking is all about. But, I haven't seen any tape on this kid yet because this just got announced about an hour, maybe 2 hours before showtime, Brady. So we got to figure this one out, man, if this is even going to happen or not. But, yeah, it should be Jack Della Maddalena. But if the muscle hamster can wrestle for 15 minutes, he might have a path, but we haven't really seen Jack's wrestling defense tested too much at this level yet.
We actually have a line open.
Really?
Yeah.
Is it the muscle hamster? Let's see. Like I'm thinking maybe minus 150 for Jack Della Maddalena. I like that line.
What's your serious prediction?
It would probably be minus 1,000 Maddalena.
Yeah, close. It's minus 825 right now, opener.
And that's a bet online opener?
No, it's actually DraftKings.
Oh, no kidding. All right. So this one is official then, because it's not even on UFC stats yet, and I didn't even see it on Tapology yet, actually.
I don't know if it's a completely official, but it should be happening.
Josiah Harrell plus 550, Jack Della Maddalena minus 825, 8.25 units to win one, Brady.
No, how about we parlay up Jack Della?
Yes, okay, I'll put that on the screen, so we got that.
Okay.
Who else?
Give me Bo Nickal.
Bo Nickal at minus 1250, a relative discount.
Okay. What's that so far?
That's minus 476. I mean, that is a fat line, baby.
Throw Tyra in there.
Tyra at, let's see, where's Tyra's line? Tyra only minus 850.
That's
so
it.
Now we're at minus 286, my friend. Now we're talking.
Can you throw Cameron Simon in there?
Cameron Simon. Can we get a four-legger close to 100? Where is Simon? There he is, minus 450.
Yeah.
Now we're at minus 154, my friend.
And then can we go ahead and throw Robert the Reaper Whittaker in there?
Yes, we can. We can throw the Reaper in there at minus 410. And now we're plus money, baby.
For plus
5
money.
legs. We get to plus money. That fat plus money number you're saying is it what, Uncle Weezy? Plus 105.
Heck yeah.
Wow.
People in the chat are getting a little mad. This is 100% a joke. It's a joke. Hopefully you don't think we're being serious. That is never. But people are actually going to do that this week.
Yeah, they are. I mean, this is like a Bellator card with these wide ass lines, and I promise you, one of these guys is going to shit the bed. It's going to happen. It happens every damn time. You see all these squares putting together these 5-leg Bellator parlays that come out to minus 125. And it's always like, I can't believe so-and-so couldn't beat that bum. That's what you get for parlaying 5 legs for juice.
Yeah, it's bad. I only have one parlay on this card. It was because I had a parlay leg from last week, but so it's one of those weeks. But
it really is.
Melon saying what could go wrong, and the answer to that is a lot can go wrong. A lot can go wrong. This is MMA. This sport is not easy at all. We've seen crazy things. We saw Elvis Brenner pull off a massive upset. I'm sure a lot of people parlayed up Guram.
Yeah, ton of people probably did that, and Guram was looking really good, and that was a great fight. That was a fantastic fight. Elvis Brenner, that kid is something special, man. He is so fun to watch.
He might be the real deal, I think.
Yeah, I think he is, man. I love those shoot box guys. They just walk forward, man. They walk forward. They can all take one to give one, and they just are there to fight for the full 15 minutes, and they get better as the fight goes on, and they're just really tough dudes to go in there against.
Yeah, for sure. All right, let's move on from a minus 820 favorite to a minus 850, you said? Discount.
850, yeah, but I think he's minus 900 on Bet Online. So if you like the Tyra side, you better get it that plus 850, baby, because it probably won't be there for long.
Okay, we can do 17 units to win 2.
Or we could parlay up those 2 big favorites, and we could do 10 units to win less than 2.
Okay, we'll do something like that. But we have Tatsuro Taira, 23 years old, 5'7" with a 70-inch reach. Edgar Chairez, he is 27 years old, 5'7" with a 72-inch reach. We got Tatsuro Taira, is 4 years younger, same height there, and Chairez with a 2-inch reach advantage. We got Tatsuro Taira, who is 5-0 in his last 5 fights. He made his debut against Carlos Candelaria, won that fight by decision. He submitted CJ Vergara. He submitted Jesus Aguilar. As far as Edgar Chairez, he is 4-1 in his last 5 fights. He went on the Contender Series, lost that fight against Clayton Carpenter. I thought he looked pretty good. He was actually, I think, a pretty big dog against Carpenter. He was piecing up Carpenter a little bit in that first round. He's actually looking pretty good, but it ended up slowing down a little bit as the fight went on, ended up getting taken down a little bit. And that's kind of the story with Chairez, who this guy's pretty big for the division. Taira is a guy that's typically going to be bigger than a lot of opponents at flyweight, but it looks like they're the same height here. I wouldn't be surprised if Chairez was even a little bit taller than Taira. Like, this guy's really, really big. But the problem with Edgar Chairez is I think the cardio is a huge concern. He has taken this fight on short notice. That's not good. And like I said, the takedown defense I don't think is up to par. So I think Chairez is not some complete bum like the line is indicating, but I feel like Taira is the real deal. This guy is only 23 years old. He's undefeated. His striking's underrated. His wrestling's a work in progress, but his grappling's amazing. And I think he's just going to wear on Chairez here, take him down to the mat consistently, take his back, and at some point, second, third round, when Chairez is tired, he's going to make a mistake, and Taira is going to sub him in that second or third round. So the over-under is actually set at 1.5, and it's juiced to the under. I don't love that. I think, like I said, Chairez is solid enough to at least last the first round. But when he does start to slow down, I think Taira is going to take advantage and submit him at some point. So I don't know if the Taira sub prop is going to be playable. I doubt it is. I bet we're going to lay like minus 150 just on the Taira sub prop. But yeah, this should be a Taira submission win here. Weezy, what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, it's so hard when you're starting off with a money line at minus 850, minus 900. It's so hard to find good spots. And even if you do, a lot of times you got to parlay them up. Like last week, I did something I almost never do, and that was parlaying, a round prop, and that was Joe Anderson Brito round 1. It was like minus 200, dude. But it was hard to predict. It was hard to see that fight getting past 5 minutes. With the way that those dudes fought, and with Taira, you kind of see this fight going one way, and that's him getting, like the Grant Dawson Ismagulov fight. I think that's how this fight goes. Tatsuro Taira is like a 125-pound version of Grant Dawson. He gets to your back, and once he gets to your back, he stays there. He's incredibly good with his control time. Almost 60% control time for, 15.5% control time allowed, winning 80% of the control time positions. Those numbers almost identical to Grant Dawson's numbers that we saw last week. Grant Dawson, 61% control time for in a big sample size, only 10% control time allowed. So Taira's doing the same kind of thing that Dawson does here. Chairez is very talented. He's a submission grappler. He's dangerous. He's always hunting for the finish. He's got a 100% finish rate in 10 wins, but he's been submitted in 2 of his losses. I believe one of them is at the hands of Jesus Aguilar, who's going to be fighting Shannon Ross on this card. I was just about to watch the Aguilar-Chairez fight. I remember that one being a classic. I had taped it before, but got to watch it again for this card because we're going to see Chairez and Aguilar on this card. So that'll be an important one to watch. But yeah, man, I mean, it's going to be Tatsuro Taira probably inside the distance by submission. Can I find a way to profit from it, though, Brady? Probably not without laying a ton of juice.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, Tatsuro Taira was actually supposed to fight Clifton Rodriguez like 2 weeks ago. I did end up pulling the trigger on the Taira sub prop, and I think I got it around like plus 170. I don't think I'm getting plus 170 in this fight, though.
Yeah, not with a minus 900 money line. I mean, he's already 91% implied on the money line. So imagine what that sub prop's going to be.
Yeah. By the way, Tatsuro Taira is pretty handsome, right?
Oh, he's a good-looking kid. Yeah.
Yeah. I was looking at his Instagram the other day. He has a nice haircut on him, and then I went to this guy's Instagram, and this guy is about as
Yeah.
ugly as it gets.
Yeah,
You know
he'll
that
be
is?
starring in Hostel 3, the Chechen version. That is Magomed Mustafayev, ladies and gentlemen. That is a terrifying haircut.
The most terrifying individual. He got cut, I think.
He did. I mean, who did they pay to make that call?
I don't know.
You know, like who's hey, you got to call Mustafayev and tell him he's cut. I'd be like, I quit. Bye.
Yeah, that is terrifying.
You don't tell people like with haircuts like that, Brady. You're not first in line to tell them that they're fired. I promise you. Not if you want to live.
No, because he apparently doesn't care about his haircut. So those guys are dangerous. You know, the guys just don't care.
No, Mustafayev has got a vacant stare. Look at that vacant stare there.
Like he's somebody you'd see in like a horror movie, like as the killer in the horror movie.
Yeah, like he's the person that they bring in to torture people, not because they want information, but just because they want the dude to really suffer before they kill him.
Yeah. So I thought that was and relevant to this fight, and thought I'd bring it up.
Yeah,
because they kind of have the same haircut, Taira and Magomedov, but
it works on Taira. He has kind eyes.
Yes. So same haircut, but Taira just pulls it off, and he's less terrifying. But yeah, I mean, like I said, the unders juice. You don't want to lay minus 135 on a flyweight under. So
yeah, it's a rough. This is going to be one of those cards where the things that we think are going to happen, the bookies are ahead of us, and they're pricing it at a much higher price than what we should be paying for it. It's a rough card.
Mm-hmm. Unless you like chalk, then it's a good card.
Yeah, if you really like chalk, then you are going to be dancing in the streets for this one.
100%. All right, Weezy, let's move on. You guessed it, a massive favorite, Cameron Simon going against Terrence Mitchell. We got Simon, 22 years old, 5'8" with a 67-inch reach. Mitchell, 33 years old, 5'10". We have Simon, who is 11 years younger, 1-inch height disadvantage. And then we got Simon, who is 5-0 in his last 5 fights, had a Contender Series win, 3rd round against Josh Wang Kim, a 3rd round knockout against Steven Kozlow, and then a decision win against Mana Martinez. As far as Terrence Mitchell, he is also 5-0 in his last 5 fights. So, so this was supposed to be Christian Rodriguez against Cameron Simon, which was just a much better and more competitive fight. But they are apparently bringing in one Terrence Mitchell, who has fought, I'd say, like 90 to 95% of his career at flyweight. He does have some recent bantamweight fights, but he was on the Ultimate Fighter season where they had the 16 flyweights, and he was on that season, and then he got knocked out by Kai France in about 30 seconds. Went back and watched some of his fight. I mean, there's not much to take away from this guy's fights because he's fighting in Alaska FC, which, as we know, unless your name is Jared Cannonier, you typically don't do well in the UFC. Guys like Carlton Minus comes to mind, awful. And then guys like, Jordan Wright comes to mind. But yeah, I mean, this guy is looking good. But I mean, most people can go out there and look good against Justin Cook, Travis Zank, whose record. So their records, some of these records, they say NA on them, Weezy. They don't even have records available. Like, who is Randall Patterson? Who is Adam Dittman? Who is Jacob Rokovishnikov? Who is Nick Belka? Luke Shelley? Who is Henry Deling? Like, who are these guys? Are these guys even real people? I'm not sure they are.
They're dock workers and meth heads. That's who they are.
Yeah, so they're not great. So yes, he's looking okay, but my goodness. And then went back and watched the Zach Eastlick fight, I think it was, and I told you about this. It was probably one of the most brutal knockout losses I've seen, where Terrence Mitchell got knocked out. I think his head hit the canvas, and he was down for a good 10 minutes. And the cameraman just pointed it at Mitchell for the entire time. The stretchers were in there. There were 10 people trying to get Mitchell up. And that was like 12 years ago. And then fast forward, he gets knocked out by Kai France. And then fast forward, he's going out there and beating some just atrocious competition. So I actually think that Mitchell might have some success here, like early on. Cameron Simon, I don't think his takedown defense is good. I still think it's improving, but I think he's gonna have to tap Simon early on, and if not, once this fight's at range, once Mitchell starts to slow down, once this is on the feet, I think Simon's gonna hurt this guy bad. I think this is a great violence spot. I don't think the violence lines are going to be chalky enough this week. Mitchell has one fight that went over 2.5 rounds. I think he has 2 fights that went over like 1.5. Like this guy, his fights are finishing very, very quickly. Cameron Simon, he's not some murderous power puncher, but he's a guy that's aggressive. He's going to come forward and he's going to land a ton of volume. So yeah, I think it's Mitchell early on, and if not, I think Cameron Simon starts to piece this guy up and finish him late first, second round. So I like Cameron Simon. Obviously, he's a big favorite, but I will be looking at violence here, looking for the under 2.5. Right now, it is set up. Some lightning just went on outside. I'm probably not in the best spot for a storm right now, but anyway, yeah, give me the under 2.5. I'm like I'm like in an open window with like no curtains. It's not the best scenario right now, so hopefully I'll be all right.
Yeah, hopefully, man. Yeah, this Terrence Mitchell, I mean, he's been fighting for 14 years, Brady, and he's only got 15 fights. He almost died in the Zach Eastlick fight. His leg was shaking after that knockout. Like, I remember that knockout, right? It was brutal. And Zach Eastlick goes and he jumps up on the cage and he's celebrating. And then you kind of see, like, the crowd's going nuts. Then the crowd starts to get silent. And then Zach Eastlick, like, all of a sudden is like, why aren't people, like, celebrating that awesome knockout? Then he looks over at Terrence Mitchell. There's already 2 stretchers in the octagon. The medics came right in there. And then all of a sudden, like, the place just goes silent. And everyone realizes that it's a really bad situation for Terrence Mitchell. And then, like, the announcer, like, 2 minutes later, after complete silence in the arena, goes, hey, give it up for Terrence Mitchell, everybody. He can hear you. He can hear you. And he's just sitting there completely out, like, on the canvas. That was really scary. And that was Zach Eastlick that did it to him. And, did you watch the Skylar Schlosser fight and the Justin Cook fight, the 2 most recent fights, Brady?
Yeah, I did.
Okay, so if you guys haven't watched this, the production value on these fights is like a step below than the production value that my high school band 99 Dick Saws had that we would play in our basement. We had the same camera set up. It was hung from the track lighting, right? They've got the same one. It's one camera. It's in the cage, and it's pointing straight down. There's no announcing. There's no nothing. It's just one camera angle the entire time. You really can't even tell most of the time what's happening because Terrence Mitchell's getting takedowns and he's getting on top, and you can't even see the other fighter because this kid's 5'10" and he's a flyweight. He's probably going to get folded in half at some point here. If Cameron Simon's takedown defense and get up game without giving up submission opportunities is going to be on point here, he should easily cruise here because, you see fights with that kind of production value and you know that they're not fighting good guys. You know that this is a huge step up in competition. And the times that we've seen Terrence do that, he's getting smoked. And this is up a weight class too for him on short notice. Alaska FC opponents. He's going to get a lot more resistance than what he gets from the dock workers and the meth heads in AFC. So I got to believe that Simon just destroys this kid.
Yeah. And unfortunately, they had the over-under set at 1.5. The under was actually plus 105, and now it's minus 135. So that sucks a little bit. But I kind of wanted the under 2.5 because, like I said, Cameron Simon, he's not much of a murderous power puncher, but I still think he finishes Mitchell, probably even under 1.5. But I need that 2.5 there. But by the looks of it, it's probably not going to be a good price, like most things on the card.
And if I look at my prop template, Brady, like betting an over 1.5 here because you're like, oh, it's a bantamweight fight, maybe I'll get a really good number, dude. It's terrifying to do it because Terrence Mitchell has been over 1.5 rounds in 12 fights that have been scheduled for 3 rounds, only one of them has ever been over 1.5 rounds. And that includes him getting slept a couple of times. Once by Kai Kara France in the Ultimate Fighter House, once by Zach Eastlick where he almost died. Yeah, this is going to be a violent fight by all looks here.
Yep, for sure. But like most things this card, man, the bookmakers are onto it this week. It's a chalky week. Like everything I like this week, you got to lay some serious chalk for, which sucks.
I hate laying chalk, dude, because that's always when just things go tits up, man. It happens all the damn time, you know. When was the last time I laid chalk? Was it Dustin Jacoby to win by decision against Khalil Roundtree? And I'm sitting there like, wait, what? Huh? How? Yeah. You know, oh no, it was Christian Leroy Duncan, and then he goes out there prancing around like, oh my god, like it was just absolutely horrible. You know, I'm like, throw the jab, throw the teep kick. You have an 8-inch reach advantage. No, nothing but spinning hook kicks for 3 rounds, getting boxed up. That's what happens every time I lay chalk, so I'm not doing it.
Yeah, I mean it gets bad, man. Like last week, I laid chalk on the Max Griffin plus 3.5 at -110, and that's it. Other than that, it was plus money. So I'm gonna try to look for plus money spots, but my goodness, the last time I laid chalk, I think was Dustin Jacoby against Azamat Mirzakhanov. And we all know how that
went. Him in that spot. I thought he was gonna win there.
Yeah. What else? Oh, and Alexander Romanov against Volkov. I laid some chalk there.
I made it there too, dude. Like 2.5 units worth of it.
And then
if he had pulled that fight out, I would have been up like 8 units that day.
Gosh, dude. But other than that, I haven't really laid chalk much this year, so that's good.
Yeah, it's a good thing for your health, man, because losing those chalk bets, man, it's hard to get that out of your mind.
Kalu, Brady, remember when that one guy was asking, what does fight start round 3 mean? Yeah. You won't believe this, but a lot of people have asked me that. What fight starts round 3? Weezy, is that confusing to you? What?
No, man. But I mean, you know, I graduated 2nd grade a long time ago. So like the command of the English language has always been there for me. My parents were sticklers that I learned how to actually read.
Yeah, maybe it's a language thing, but I mean, I asked my wife, who doesn't really watch UFC at all. I was like, "What does fight starts round 3 mean?" And she was like, "The fight starts round 3." I was like, "Yeah,
that's a brilliant answer."
Yeah, I mean, you got it right. But I guess it's confusing, which is fine. Well, we all learn. And yeah, the chalk last week, man. I mean, we had Guram lost, we had Gatto lost, we had Bonfim lost. I mean. Don't be surprised if some of these big favorites crap the bet. I mean, somebody has to. We have like 12 big favorites. Somebody's going to crap the bet.
It happens every week, folks. You know, it happens every damn time. So, yeah, you want to lay -400 on Yazmin Jauregui? I think she's a fantastic fighter, but yeah, I mean, somebody's going to blow it.
Yeah, and I agree with Mushroom here. Come on. By the way, I will not be going to the strip club in Las Vegas because that just seems like too expensive. But not doing that this week. But maybe next time.
I've never been to a strip club story for you one time, Brady, that I got to tell you off the air. I'll never again, man. Never again. Yeah, those places are awful.
No, I bet they really come on, smack their ass as they come on to you. Is that what they did?
I'll tell you about it one time, man. Okay. It's a legendary story, but it is definitely an off the air kind of story.
Yeah, for sure. All right, let's move on then. We have Kamela Kirk going against Esteban Ribovics. We got Kamela Kirk, 29 years old, 5'10" with a 75-inch reach. Ribovics, 27 years old, 5'10" with a 69-inch reach. We have Kirk is going to be 2 years older, and he's going to have a 6-inch reach advantage. We got Kamela Kirk, 3-2 in his last 5 fights. He had a decision loss to Bruno Souza, who is in the UFC. He made his debut against Makwan Americani, won that fight by decision, and then he lost by submission against Damon. As far as Esteban Ribovics, he made his debut against Loik Rajabov, lost that fight by decision, and then he knocked out poor Thomas Paul, who I think is deaf. Knocked out Thomas Paul in the first round. But yeah, so this is a interesting fight. It's actually one of the closer line fights on the card, Weezy. We have Kamela Kirk, who is coming up a weight class after not fighting for about a year and 3 months. And I think Kirk is going to be a very popular underdog this week. And that is because Kirk is a first-degree black belt in BJJ. This guy's grappling is very good. And Esteban Ribovics has the most shit takedown defense I've ever seen in my life. I mean, it's very, very bad. We saw Blake Rajabov take him down like 15 times. So in theory, Weezy, Kamela Kirk should go out there and take down Esteban Ribovics, right? But the problem with Kamela Kirk, yes, he's this really good black belt. He doesn't really grapple as much as he should. You know, I'm watching a lot of his fights, and he's out there striking, and he's a good striker. He is. He's going to have a reach advantage here, but you know, striking against Esteban Ribovics is not really something you want to do. Ribovics is an absolute killer. There were multiple fights where Ribovics is knocking out these guys, and they're not getting up for minutes at a time. So Kamela Kirk, I think it would be wise for him to grapple because you can take down Ribovics no problem. But A, Kamela Kirk does not do that. And B, Kamela Kirk's gas tank is not good. And then C, he's coming up a weight class. And then D, Esteban Ribovics, yes, his takedown defense is bad, but his get-up game's elite. So I kind of like Ribovics in this matchup. I think this line's going to come down a lot because I get what people are seeing. Kirk, BJJ black belt, Ribovics, shit takedown defense, but I don't know if it's that simple. So give me Ribovics for the knockout here, round 2, round 3. And I think it's another violent fight. I think there's a lot of violent fights on this card, and this is definitely one of them. Weezy, what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how Kirk, handles the lightweight weight class here, coming up from featherweight, because he's been in there with some good guys, Amir Khani, Damon Jackson, Bruno Sosa, and then also Billy Quarantillo, I believe, on the Dana White Contender Series, right? Was that Kirk who just got absolutely destroyed by Quarantillo?
Yeah, he got gassed out and his ass shaved.
Yeah, and I mean, like, that's Quarantillo, though. I mean, that is a very, very high level guy, and Kirk had a good first round against him, but Billy's pace is just something that's just really a nightmare to deal with. But Camuela is the more experienced guy. He's got a 6-inch reach advantage. He's the switch stance fighter, a siege MMA guy, a fight ready guy. So he's already teamed up with some pretty good dudes over there. And like you said, a really good grappler. But it's kind of funny because when you look at the grappling stats in the top right of the page there, you just see all that red, right? Camuela Kirk, 6% control time for, 50% control time allowed. Same thing with Ribovics. Ribovics is winning only 6% of the control time positions that he's been in, and he got controlled 51% of the fight against Ribovics, against Rajabov. So both of these guys don't try takedowns. Both of these guys have terrible takedown defense, and both of these guys tend to prefer to strike. But it was Ribovics' numbers that looked a lot better up here in terms of just landing 8.93 distance strikes per minute, attempting 18.15, while Camuela Kirk is only attempting 10.39. So he's a lot lower volume on the feet than what Ribovics is. But, it's a small sample size for both of these guys. Only 2 fights for Kirk, 1 for Ribovics. Yeah, I could see why people are getting to the Camuela Kirk side here. He's fought the better brand of competition. He's more experienced. He's probably going to be the better submission grappler. He's going to have to avoid that Kimura trap that Ribovics goes for over and over again when he gets taken down. But if he's out there watching tape, then he's drilling that defense, and he should be able to probably win some minutes on the ground here. And we'll see how the striking looks. He's been off for a year and 3 months, but he's still only 29 years old, so we could see some improvements from Camuela here. I think that this fight should be probably lined closer to even than minus 200 for Ribovics. Don't want to overrate that performance in a loss here. And then once you go behind the Thomas Paul fight, there's really nothing that we can really hang our hat on yet. So I think Kirk is like the side in terms of the money line here. And I think that this is going to be probably a pretty close fight.
I kind of see somebody getting finished. I don't know if it's going to be, it might be close early, but I could see like Kirk maybe getting like a sub, and Ribovix hits hard, man. Like he almost knocked out Loic like a couple times in that fight. Like he dropped Loic. He had Loic wobbled in that third round. I just hate the cardio of Kirk, man. Like, and he's coming up a weight class off a year layoff. I don't know. I don't like Kirk in this matchup, but this money line is going to close up a lot. It looks like it already has. Ribovix opened up minus 119. He went all the way to minus 205. He's now minus 185. And then Kirk is currently sitting out plus 160. And I do expect it to keep getting closer, but I'm going to be looking at some type of violence here. Looks like the under 2.5 is minus 185. I prefer like the fight doesn't go instead because of the cardio issues for Kirk and Esteban. This guy, I believe, has 100% finish rate, but a lot of those finishes do come like late third round. So his power carries, and I think that's going to help him out here. So I like violence. I like Ribovix, but nothing I'm really running to the window for on this one.
Yeah, Kirk and Ribovix have 23 combined wins, Brady. 22 of those 23 are finishes.
Holy crap.
So these guys are definitely finishers, but Kirk has only been finishing 2 of 5 losses. Ribovix has never been finished. So, you know, you got the high finish rates, but not a lot of them in the UFC. So you always have to wonder, you know, what's going to take over. Will it be the finishing, you know, potential of the two fighters or the durability of the two fighters involved? So we have to walk that line there. But yeah, these guys are good finishers, both of them.
Absolutely. Another fun fight. All right, let's move on. Then we have Shannon Ross going against Jesus Aguilar. We got Shannon Ross, 34 years old, 5'6" with a 66-inch reach. Jesus Aguilar, 27 years old, 5'4" with a 62-inch reach. We got Shannon Ross, 7 years younger, 2-inch height advantage, 4-inch reach advantage. As far as Shannon Ross, he is 2-3 in his last 5 fights. At a contender series loss against Vinicius Salvador, by knockout second round. First round knockout loss to Yair Rodriguez. As far as Jesus Aguilar, he had a win against, like we talked about, Edgar Chairez in a 5-round fight, submitted Chairez in that 5th round. And then he went out there on the contender series, got I think it was a third round submission. And then he submitted, third round. And then he got submitted by Tetsuro Taira in the first round. But man, he was close to finishing Taira. It looked like he had him in that guillotine for like a couple minutes. Taira was able to get out, but that was kind of a scare there in that fight. So, Shannon Ross, I like to think of him as the Australian Malcolm Gordon. I remember taping this guy for Contender Series, and quite frankly, I was kind of impressed with the guy. The only thing I didn't like about Shannon Ross, though, was the durability. This guy's a flyweight, and he's getting dropped in a lot of his fights. He's getting club and subbed. He's getting knocked down. He's getting knocked out. And I'm like, yeah, the durability is the one issue, but I like everything else. I think the takedown defense is solid. I think he's a really good striker. He has power in his own right, good volume. But it's the durability that scares me a tad. And I ended up picking him against Vinicius Salvador because, Salvador is a guy that, we didn't know a lot about him. There wasn't a lot of recent tape of the guy. And Ross was a pretty big favorite in that Salvador fight. I think he was like minus 250. And then Ross went out there and proceeded to just get destroyed by Salvador. Salvador hurt him a bunch of times in the first round, hurt him a bunch of times in the second round. I think he got dropped 3 times. I mean, getting dropped 3 times at flyweight's not good. And as we know now, Vinicius Salvador, I don't think he's that great. And then he went in there against Yair Rodriguez and gets knocked down in the first round. So I think the chin of Shannon Ross, the durability of Shannon Ross is a huge, huge red flag. But luckily he's going against Jesus Aguilar, which is a guy that is a submission guy. He has one move, and it's the guillotine, and my goodness, is he good at it. Like I said, he almost got Tetsuro Taira. You take a look at his record, a ton of guillotines. When this guy's winning, it's more often than not going to be by guillotine, and he has a very, very tight squeeze on him. If you're going to bet Aguilar, you probably bet him by sub. I think that's how he gets it done. I don't want to completely count out Shannon Ross. I could see a scenario where he does, stuff some takedowns, keep it on the feet, and outstrike Aguilar. And it looks like money is coming in on Shannon Ross. I think Shannon Ross might be another popular dog, but I will not be putting any money on the Australian Malcolm Gordon because maybe Aguilar does hurt him. Maybe Shannon Ross's chin is so bad that Aguilar does land a big shot. I mean, wouldn't shock me. So give me Aguilar via guillotine. That's how he wins. But I'm not running to the window to late chalk on this Aguilar guy.
Yeah, I feel the exact same way. I kind of feel like if you're making the bet on Aguilar, you're probably betting against Ross more than you are betting on Aguilar. But, if Aguilar wrestles and gets this fight to the ground, he's great on top. Got good ground and pound, good control. And he is going to hunt for submissions. 6 of his 8 pro wins are by sub, and he's been subbed in his only 2 losses. So both of these guys have been finished a lot. For Ross, it's 4 out of 7. For Aguilar, it's 2 out of 2. So 6 of their 9 combined losses have been inside the distance. Yeah, but I can't get to laying minus 190 here on Jesus Aguilar, because if he doesn't get the takedowns, if Shannon Ross stops takedowns here, this is going to be a close fight, because Aguilar's striking is nothing, that's going to knock your socks off. This is a low-level fight for this card in particular. For UFC 290, it's kind of crazy that you would expect that this fight would be on the next week card with the Bueno Silva home card.
Yeah. So
I don't like this one, man.
No.
This is something I'm going to be probably entirely. I was even looking at the over 2.5 because it's a flyweight fight, and I don't know if either of these guys has a lot of finishing equity here, but it's terrifying. Neither one of these guys is that good.
Yeah. I mean, you don't want to lay minus 200 on a guillotine or bust guy, but you also don't want to bet on Shannon Ross. Go easy, Brady Gordon. Come on. I mean, I feel like it's a fair comparison. I mean, Shannon Ross has been finished a ton, man, like a lot.
Yeah, 4 of his 7 losses. Yeah, and
he gets dropped a lot too. I feel like that's a fair comparison. Both flyweights both get dropped a lot. I don't hate that comparison. Ross says fight goes to the scorecards. It could. Maybe they're both so bad that this fight does go to the scorecards, but like I said, that guillotine is deadly. So I kind of like the guillotine, but we'll see where that sub prop's priced at. Money is coming in on Shannon Ross. People like the Australian Malcolm Gordon this week. He opened up plus 180, currently plus 150. And then Jesus Aguilar opened up minus 210, currently minus 175. In all seriousness, it is probably dog or pass, but my money will go nowhere near Shannon Ross. So it's a big pass from a money line standpoint, but I'm going to take a look at like an Aguilar sub prop if it's solid money.
Yeah, that's, I think, the way to go. He looks for that guillotine all the time. So he's going to find some opportunity to lock one up, and we'll see if he winds up finishing it.
Yeah, legend has it Shannon Ross got dropped getting into bed. I heard he got dropped from the turbulence on his way from to the USA from Australia. The turbulence knocked him down a couple times. So
it can happen to the best of us.
Yeah. What do we say about Jordan Wright the one time? What knocked down Jordan Wright the one time?
It was the hot shower. He had a hot shower, dude, and that can happen. I mean, like it's hotter than you expect it to be, and bam,
Mm-hmm. 1-800 gambler fight. I can agree with that. Like when I saw this fight was on the card, I was actually kind of upset. Like I didn't want to see this.
Yeah, this is definitely a 1-800 gambler fight. Laying minus 190 on Jesus Aguilar and putting 160 on a fighter of Shannon Ross's caliber. It's probably not going to cash the underdog bet, but it could. It's going to be greasy if it does. And you're probably going to need to take a shower like you did after cashing the Luana Carolina bet, which I should have been there cashing it with you. That line made no sense, but.
And I wasn't joking. I really did take a shower after that fight.
Yeah, it's not a bad idea, man. You got to wash it off of but you cashed the ticket. So congratulations for having the balls to make the bet.
Well, it was mostly because I didn't want to watch the Carol Hosa fight.
Yeah, I walked Bootsy during that fight.
Yeah, so I got a good shower. I took my time because I knew it was going 15 minutes.
Yeah,
ended up still having to watch the third round, unfortunately. But
yeah, it is what this is what we have to do, though. We have to watch them anyway.
Yeah, for sure. All right, let's move on then to the next fight. Speaking of questionable chins, we got Victor Petrino going against Marcin Prachnio. We got Petrino, 25 years old, 6'2" with a 77-inch reach. Prachnio, 34 years old, 6'3" with a 74-inch reach. We got Petrino, 9 years younger. Petrino with a 1-inch height disadvantage and a 3-inch reach advantage. Petrino 5-0 in his last 5 fights. Had a couple solid wins outside the UFC. Knocked out Antagulov in the second round. Made his debut on he fought on the Contender Series. Knocked out Bellato for the second time. Good knockout there. And then he won a decision against Anton Turkalj. As far as Marcin Prachnio, 3-2 in his last 5 fights. A knockout loss against slow Mike Rodriguez. A decision win against Khalil Roundtree. Knockout win against Ike Villanueva. Decision loss against Philippe Lins. And then a decision win against William Knight, and the worst performance I've ever seen in my life. What was the worst performance? Was it William Knight, or was it Crone Gracie, or was it Claudio Poyas, Dan Hooker? Those are three really bad ones that come to mind. What was worse?
I mean, the thing is, it had to be Knight, in my opinion, because at least Puelli's could have locked up a leg lock. At least the other one could have been a leg lock as well. I mean, we've seen some of these guys that are leg lock or bust, but at least they're going for the leg lock. I don't know what happened to William Knight there. That was about as bad of a performance as you could possibly have in the octagon. I don't know who's going to sign him next.
Yeah, I had the under in that fight, and imagine how I felt. Imagine how I felt with an under bet in that fight.
I put William Knight in my greasy 4-leg parlay. It was the only leg that didn't cash. And it was like I was looking for a fourth leg. And when William Knight showed up and he made weight, I was like, oh, maybe he gives a shit. And I was actually of the opinion, like, all you have to do is give a shit in order to win a fight against Marcin Prachnio. And evidently, you know, he made weight, but he didn't give a shit. That was clear.
No, not at all. But anywho, back to this fight. I'm pretty high on Petrino, man. I mean, he's only 25 years old, and a lot of people might be crapping on him for that Turcale win. I was actually impressed because I was expecting no takedowns whatsoever, because we didn't see that at all outside the UFC. We saw him getting taken down. I think that's a potential hole in his game, but I wasn't expecting him to go out there and out grapple Turcale, take Turcale down 7 times. So this guy's making improvements. And like I said, yeah, the takedown defense, it is a serious concern. I think somebody in the near future might test that. But Marcin Prachnio has totaled 0 takedowns in the UFC and attempted only 3 of them. So Petrino's going to get the fight he wants. Petrino's going to dictate where this fight takes place. If he wants to go out there and knock out Marcin Prachnio, he definitely can. Petrino has a ton of power in his hands. He showed solid cardio in the Turcale fight. He showed solid wrestling. We saw Prachnio get wrestled against Philippe Lins, gas out bad. So I think Petrino can mix in takedowns here, or simply just knock him out. I think Petrino has a lot of paths to victory, whereas for Prachnio, if he wins this fight, this is how I see it playing out. Just a bunch of like leg kicks, sticking on the outside, which it could happen, but I mean, you know, damage wins fights. You know, what are the judges going to score? You know, 10 leg kicks from Prachnio or Petrino wobbling Prachnio across the cage. But I don't think it goes to the judges anyway. I like Petrino here, probably first round knockout. And I think he has some serious upside. Prachnio's been looking like okay as of late, but you know, knocking out Ike Villanueva, winning a decision against William Knight where he landed like 9 head strikes. And then Khalil Roundtree just didn't show up. So he's fought 2 guys, Weezy, that just did not show up. William Knight did not show up, and Khalil Roundtree did not show up. Vitor Petrino does not strike me as a guy that won't show up. So I think Petrino gets this done. Weezy, what are your thoughts on this fight? Really fun fight here.
Yeah, even if Petrino was like a little bit logy, a little bit slow, those cornermen of his, like that woman and that dude, like they're always going, you know, ho, you know, like, oh, you know, dude, if that doesn't get you fired up, I'm sorry, you shouldn't be in the UFC. So even if Petrino is making that walk and he's not 100%, I think his corner people will have him ready to go once he gets in that cage, man. Marcin Prachnio is not going to get somebody that stands in front of him and does nothing this fight. I'll tell you that. Petrino is super fun to watch. He reminds me a little bit of a guy that I thought would win last week in Bruno Ferreira. You know, a guy with a ton of power, you know, a guy that's got, you know, very serviceable Brazilian jiu-jitsu as well. And just seems to be one of these dudes that, you know, really said their prayers and ate their Flintstone vitamins and are looking really big and strong because of it. He's a true middleweight, man. 77-inch reach, still only 25 years old, Brady. You know, this is a 35-year-old Prachnio on fight day. You know, so this is something that's going to be, you know, I mean, like you said, if Prachnio can keep the distance in point fight, you know, he's got a chance here. But that's not really Petrino's game. He's got a 75% finish rate. He can mix in the grappling, which is the best part, you know, because I feel like if he finds that he's having a hard time managing distance against Marcin and he's getting point fighted, he can just mix in the wrestling and win that way, like we saw him win against Turcale. And frankly, I mean, he should have finished Turkalj, but Turkalji's stupid tough.
I was just gonna say that. Like, I was watching that fight back. What is Turkalji's like head made out of?
Yeah, dude, he's got a brick for a head. You're not knocking that dude out. He eats every big shot like a flapjack. He's got serious Homer Simpson vibes about him, man. He's the much better looking Homer Simpson. So, and Prachnio, a lot of people have forgotten that Prachnio's UFC run started with an 0-3 stretch where he was knocked out in the first round 3 times in a row. One of them by Sam Alvey. You know, that was Sam Alvey's last win. So, yeah, I like Petrino here. He's 9 years younger than this guy. He's got a 3-inch reach advantage. He's got real power, and he's got more ways to win the fight, Brady. And I think that's always a good thing. You know, when you're younger, but you've got more avenues as well. And we saw him mix in the grappling against a guy that you wouldn't think you'd want to mix in the grappling against, because Turkalj is a BJJ black belt. So I'm not sure why he did that, but he showed that he's got it in his back pocket. Great thing to have in a Marcin Prachnio fight. Yeah, I like Petrino here.
Yeah, I mean, I love that performance because we were expecting like Petrino to either knock out Turkalj or Turkalj to grapple Petrino. It was actually Petrino implemented the wrestling. I was like, what are you doing? But no, he wrestled 7 takedowns. He went the full 15, which I like to see. I don't know if this goes the full 15. Like I said, if he lands those same shots that he was landing on Turkalj, like, oh my, it's going to be bad for Prachnio. So I parlayed up Petrino at minus 250 with the Joe Anderson Brito under 2.5. Extremely chalky, but I mean, it is what it is. So I now have a 2.5 unit bet on Petrino at minus 155, which I like. He's now minus 280. And I might be adding on. I was potentially looking at that under 1.5 Weezy. Like these totals move today, and I mean moved big time, because that under 1.5 was plus money at one point, and now it was plus 155. Now it's minus 135. So these totals are chalky this week. Petrino inside the distance is probably going to be like minus 150. So I have that parlay. I think that's about it for me on this fight. But I think Petrino gets it done, and probably by knockout. But I could see a decision. I could see a knockout. I just like Petrino to get it done one way or another.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that Prachnio is definitely ripe to be finished. It's been a minute, but I think we're going to see it coming here, like Slow Mike did to him. So yeah, I'm looking for Petrino to get this win. I mean, because like I said, can't believe that Turkalj survived that beatdown.
No, and I had an under in that one too.
Yeah, I remember thinking I was actually thinking about taking the over, just because I remember from Turkalj's tape, it's like, dude, this guy has got a serious chin on him. So and wound up actually going over. But you know, it's hard to even have the balls to bet overs in fight like that.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
because it could have finished multiple times. I mean,
yeah, it could have. Yeah, even if you would have cashed the bet, you would have been like, Jesus Christ, was that a bad bet? You know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like I remember watching the Bonfim fight last night, and I was like, I almost bet the over, and then
me too.
As soon as the fight started, I was like, yes, I didn't bet the over. Yes.
They were fighting like 2 rats in a shoe, dude. It was going nuts, like right from the. And I was like, man, thank God I don't have to wait for this one to try to go 7.5 minutes, because it doesn't look like it's going to get there.
You can tell when a fight is going to finish quickly, and that with the pace those guys were setting, it definitely did in that first round.
Yeah, and speaking of one that we thought would finish.
Yep. Speaking of a chalky under, that I think we bet the under 1.5 in this fight. What did we get it, like minus 110? I think
we got plus money. I think I might have gotten plus 118 or something. I think you got it too.
That's not bad.
Yeah, it just didn't work out, man. It just didn't work out, but it was a good bet. You know, we made the right stylistic read. These guys beat the hell out of each other. This was a classic fight. That's why they're remaking it.
Mm-hmm. When I first saw it get announced, I was like, okay. But I ended up watching it for the first time yesterday, because I didn't watch this fight the first. I forget what I was doing. I think it was a pay-per-view card, so I didn't get the pay-per-view that week, and then my stream was kind of messing up, so I didn't get to watch it. But watched it back yesterday. And yeah, the under did not cash, Weezy, but it could have cashed like 50 times. At one point, Menifield had Jimmy Crute like dead to rights. Jimmy Crute was like just covering up, and Menifield was like landing these like pitter patter shots on him like this. And no, the ref's not going to stop the fight for that. Like, Menifield could have finished that fight. And then I got to the second and third round, just got completely sloppy. Ended up being a draw, but we get the rematch here. We got Jimmy Crute, 27 years old, 6'2" with a 74-inch reach. We got Alonzo Menifield, 35 years old, 6 foot with a 76-inch reach. We got Jimmy Crute, 8 years younger, 2-inch height advantage and a 2-inch reach disadvantage. Jimmy Crute, he has 2-2 and 1 draw in his last 5 fights. A submission win against Mikel Olazechuk, a knockout win against Modestas Bukauskas, knockout loss against Anthony Smith and Jamal Hill, and then that draw against Menifield. As far as Menifield, he has 3-1 and 1 draw in his last 5 fights, a decision win against Ed Herman, a decision loss. Am I reading that right, Weezy? A decision loss against William Knight. That is terrible.
Yeah, man. I remember I bet Menifield that day, and I didn't get to watch the fight. I'm like, how did Menifield not beat Knight? And you go, oh, no, dude, he beat him. It was just a bad decision.
No, I agree. I thought Menifield won the fight, but even looking at that, just weird. He knocks out Askar Mozara, which, by the way, let's get Mozara back in the UFC. What do you say?
Yeah, man, he was fun, dude. He was trying to kill Menifield in that fight. He was landing some big shots.
Yeah, like one fight and he's out. Like, come on, man. And then he
that's what you get for lying about your record.
Yeah, he's a liar, but a lot of people lie about their heights and stuff. Like Rosenstruck, he says he's 6'3", he's 5'6". I hope he's in Vegas. I'm gonna measure him. I'm gonna bring my measuring tape, and I'm gonna prove that the Rosenstruck is actually 5'4". So, and then he knocks out Misha Serkinov, and then he has that draw against Jimmy Crute. So, yeah, I mean it's probably the only like bettable line on the card. I mean, we have a straight pick'em here, and I think a pick'em makes sense. I mean, I think this fight can go either way. I guess it comes down to, does Jimmy Crute A, fight smart, and does Jimmy Crute, B, does his chin hold up against Alonzo Menifield? And I saw a tweet today from one Mike's MMA pick. Shout out to Mike. The guy is hilarious. I don't know if he's being serious a lot of times, but the guy is hilarious. And he tweeted this. He said Jimmy Crute's all-time striking defense under the UFC banner through 9 fights, including Dana White's Contender Series, dropped to 45% after his draw versus Alonzo Menifield. In that specific bout, Menifield landed a staggering 99 out of 127 total strikes thrown and 67 of his significant strikes. And then Mike posted this picture, and I think this picture completely sums up Jimmy Crute. Look at that striking defense, dude. Look at that strike. What is going on? Can you explain what's going on here?
Both hands completely down, nowhere near his face, no defensive shell at all. It's just like, let me keep my hands at my sides, like they've been tied there, so that you can just put your knuckles right on my chin. My God.
What is that? So shout out to Mike. That was an awesome tweet. So yeah, Jimmy Crute, his fight IQ is atrocious. Is he going to wrestle? I don't know. He needs to. I don't know. I'm not. A lot of people are planting their flag. This is the plant your flag fight of the week. Not me. Could Menifield knock him out? Yeah. Could Crute take him down, wear on him, and submit him later? Yeah. Give me violence here. I think it's a violent fight. But I won't be betting a side, because if you bet on Crute, he's probably not going to wrestle and get knocked out. And if you bet on Menifield, he's probably getting taken down in subs. So, I mean, I think it's a lose-lose. You're laying chalk both way, minus 115 apiece. It's a pass fight for me. But violence, going right back to the well with some violence. I think this fight does finish this time around. If it doesn't, so be it. But I think this fight does finish. As long as Mark Goddard's not reffing, I think this fight finishes.
Brady, let me say some words that I say every week that I'm going to lose big money at the window. I like Jimmy Crute this week. Yeah. And every time I've said that, whether it was against Jamal Hill, whether it was against Anthony Smith, where he got his calf shut down, every time I've said to myself, I like Jimmy Crute this week. It's cost me an absolute pile of money, but I like Jimmy Crute this week. Look, dude, 6 of 12 on his takedowns against Alonzo Menifield. And look at Menifield's takedown defense, right? 8 of 35 in the UFC. So meaning before that fight, Alonzo Menifield's opponents were successful on 2 of 23 takedown attempts. So Crute, who is only 27 years old, is coming off of a big layoff prior to that Menifield fight, right? I think he got his orbital broken against Jamal Hill. He took some time off, but man, did he come back and wrestle effectively. And look at those numbers on the grappling offense. 18 of 28 on his takedowns. He's averaging 5.67 takedowns per 15 minutes, 8.82 attempts, 45% control time for, 22% control time allowed. So very impressive performance, in my opinion, the last time out. Taking a guy that's an absolute unit in Alonzo Menifield down 6 times over 15 minutes is a tremendous accomplishment. And he fought through a lot of adversity in that fight as well. And I think that Crute, oddly enough, probably has just as much of a chance to land a big shot on the feet. But what I'm always worried about with Crute is it's the defense, and you could see it right here. 46% distance striking defense. He's absorbing 6 distance strikes per minute, out of 11.24. So, actually, his opponents are throwing 1.37 less significant strike attempts per minute at distance than what the average is for the division. But Jimmy Crute is still absorbing 1.81 more distance strikes per minute than the average for the division. So, yeah, I mean, it's about as bad as it gets on defense. And then you look at Menifield on the other side, he's got, 53% striking accuracy. So he can find that big old chin of Jimmy Crute while he keeps his hands around his sides there. I mean, that picture wouldn't be nearly as funny, Brady, if Jimmy Crute's gloves were anywhere to be seen, anywhere near his face. But
looks like he has his hands tied behind his back. I mean, is his hands tied behind his back in this picture?
Like there's boxing coaches who would be silent, Jimmy, no, get those hands up, man. What are you doing?
I need to know, before I bet this fight, is Jimmy Crute going to come with handcuffs tied behind his back? I need to know before this fight.
I don't know. Brady, this kid's so talented, this Crute.
He's so good, yeah.
He's so talented, I mean, I really think that he could still put it all together. He's still only 27 years old. He's very young for the division. You look at a guy like Brendan Allen, who's still only 27, 28 years old. And you see the run that he's on with the grappling game that he has. Crute is kind of like Brendan Allen with his grappling, only he's a much better wrestler than Brendan Allen. Alonzo definitely has a ton of power. I do think that he can absolutely land big shots and make this a great fight, a back and forth fight. But I'm going to go with the guy with more ways to win this fight. And I would suggest that if you want to bet on this card, you better have an opinion about this fight because everything else is juiced to the tits, Brady. So this might be the one that you want to spend most of your time on tape study, and you've already got to see them fight once as well. So, yeah, I'm going to go with Crute, just being the younger guy, more ways to win the fight. I think that he can dominate the grappling exchanges like he did the last time out. But this time it's not going to be in Australia. It's going to be on the other side of the pond, so that, Menifield's going to have a little bit of an advantage being the home team, the home country fighter here.
Yeah, I mean, some spots I'm looking at. I think Menifield round 1. That's his win condition. If this fight gets to round 2, I don't like the gas tank of Menifield. Whereas with Crute, he can push a pace. So I like Menifield round 1, probably knockout, and then Crute, I don't mind the round 2, round 3 sprinkles, and then just simply the under 1.5. Like we said last time we bet it, it should have cashed. The fight probably should have been stopped. Crute was done in that first round. So I like a lot of spots in this fight. All are violence. They actually have the under 2.5, or the under set at 2.5, and the under 2.5 is minus 240, and it got completely smashed. Which I think that hits, but I'm going to be greedy and go with the under 1.5. I think it goes under 7.5 minutes. Hopefully get around plus money for it.
Yeah, that'd be a nice play, dude. We're going to have to see where that opens. And right now, even though it's a pay-per-view week, it looks like BetOnline has no props out yet other than the over-unders for none of these fights.
I guess the under 2.5 is now minus 275. So it was
minus.
Yeah.
I just refreshed it. It was just 255, now minus 275. It's getting juiced, and that's funny. You can get an over 2.5 for plus 215, and these guys went over 2.5 last time. but it was not sweat free.
No, it was not. Like, I was shocked that the fight didn't get stopped in the first. There was like so many opportunities for it to do so. All right. Let's move on then to the next fight.
Go.
We have 164 of you in here. If you guys have not already, smash that like button. We do appreciate it here at Pub Sports Radio. We have Yazmin Jauregui going against Denise Gomes. We got Jauregui is 24 years old, 5'3" with a 64-inch reach. Gomes, 23 years old, 5'2" with a 63-inch reach. Gomes, 1 year younger. Jauregui with a 1-inch height advantage and a 1-inch reach advantage. We got Jauregui, was 5-0 in her last 5 fights, made her debut against Yazmin Lucindo, won that fight by decision, and then knocked out Estela Nunez her last time out. As far as Denise Gomes, she has 4-1 in her last 5 fights, made her debut against Loma Lukbunmi, and then knocked out Bruna Brazil in her last fight. Massive line here, Weezy. And let me ask you this. What could go wrong laying minus 400 here on Yazmin Jauregui?
Yeah, a lot could go wrong. Now, don't get me wrong, man. I am a big fan of this Jauregui. You know, I think she's a really polished striker. When you see her on her regional scene footage, mixing in the wrestling and winning some minutes in rounds that are somewhat close with the wrestling near the end. There appears to be really good fight IQ, really good training, fantastic boxing. It's all there. The problem is when you're fighting somebody like Denise Gomes, right, who is not technical, who is not crisp, boxing coaches would never show footage of her. Sometimes those are the type of opponents that'll give a technical fighter the most problems, because they're not going to stand in front of them and try to point fight and try to fight a fight where they're going to be inferior. Denise is just going to walk forward. She's mean. She's durable, you know, and she won't really fuck off. So I'm interested to see how Yazmin is able to handle this. I think it's a good thing it's a big cage, Brady, because I think if this were a smaller cage, Yazmin wouldn't be able to use that footwork and would have a harder time managing distance, but she can kind of use lateral movement here. She's so much better technically with her striking. She's so much better at range. She's going to have a 1-inch reach advantage, be 1 inch taller. She's a little more experienced with one more pro fight. But Denise Gomes is just a pit bull. She's just a dog. She walks forward. She's mean. She's very, very durable. She's there to fucking scrap. And, you know, and Bruna Brazil is a similar opponent. You know, the one that she just went out there and destroyed the last time. Bruna's tall, long, good kicks, manages distance well, right? You know, a pretty nice-looking kickboxer. Denise was like, fuck your range, fuck your kicks. I'm just going to walk you down, you know, and I don't think you're going to be able to hit me as hard as I hit you. So it's going to be an interesting stylistic matchup here. I mean, I'm a huge fan of Yazmin Jauregui. I think she's a very good fighter, still only 24 years old. So a lot of growing to do, a lot of improving to do, and the technicals are already there. The boxing is already there. The footwork is there. She's clearly very well coached. But these are the kind of opponents that could take a very technical fighter and get them out of their game plan, because it's not going to be a technical fight against Denise Gomes.
Yep. I think we're all in agreement that Jauregui wins this fight and potentially even finishes Gomes. Like, there was that one fight, Gomes against what was her name? Dudieva, right? Where Dudieva just like 10-8'd her in like each round, and then Gomes was still there in that third round, came back and got the win. But Denise Gomes is going to eat punches with her face, and doing that against Jauregui is probably not the best idea in the world. Jauregui hits pretty hard, so I actually think we might see a potential finish here at strawweight. And me and you were talking about potentially the under, which is plus money. I want to see if it moved at all. So the under 2.5 is like plus 131. I don't hate that. I think this fight's just going to be a war. Both these fighters are dogs. I think this actually has potential to be like one of the best fights on the card, on a card where this card is completely stacked. Like, this fight is going to be fun. And I think I could see a potential finish in this one. Both fighters have power. So the under is something that I don't mind. Would like a little bit better price on it, but plus 131. Any thoughts on that, or any thoughts on potentially parlaying up Jauregui with maybe Bo Nickal to get the price down to minus 350?
I like Nickal to win this week. Oddly enough, you say that, so maybe he is a good parlay piece. But yeah, maybe the under is a good look here. 71% finish rate for Gomes in 7 wins, 70% finish rate for Jauregui. And I think that we're going to see this fight take place mostly on the feet here. So I think these ladies are going to land big shots. And I think Yazmin is just going to absolutely pick her apart and destroy her from range. It just depends, how is Gomes going to really walk forward and be able to find places to close that distance and not let Jauregui just kind of like laterally move and pump that jab and pick her apart. I don't know if I'd bet an under here because I really like the durability of Gomes, and I think Jauregui's just, I think she's levels above Gomes here. But there's something to be said for scrappers, man. The people that got that dog in them, and if you're taking that dog ticket on Denise Gomes, I can tell you one thing: she's gonna fight for your money.
Yep, she may not be that great, but she is a dog.
She will fight for your money. When you're getting that big plus money number there, that's actually kind of a comforting thing, knowing that she's going to be there for the full 15 or until you actually take her out of the fight. That Duty Ava fight was something else. She got 7 shades of shit beaten out of her for like the first 12 minutes of that fight. Dropped maybe 5 times. I think she was dropped 3 times in the second round and twice in the first, and came back and finished her in the third.
Mm-hmm. It was an interesting performance for sure. But yeah, give me Jauregui, but you won't see me laying minus 400. We got Trevor with a 4-legger for me. Let's hear it. So he's saying Dricus, Plessis. You lost me already, Trevor. Petrino, Turner, and Brandon Moreno. I don't really like it. Weezy, any thoughts on it?
Yeah, I wouldn't parlay Du Plessis at plus 300. You don't need to parlay those unless you're like parlaying with a couple other plus money numbers to try to get rich. I always just straight bet a plus 300, but it's there's so many juiced favorites. You're going to have to find some parlays to get close to plus money this week. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm. So if you like Dricus, I just play him straight. I don't like him personally, but I'm sure there's a lot that do. Good luck to all minus 450 WMMA bettors. Yeah, you're gonna need it, man. You're gonna need it. And then he's saying Denise Gomes plus 3.5. Yeah, I was thinking about that as well, Mark, actually. So that might be something I look at. And Jauregui into the distance plus money, another spot that I'll be taking a look at. And like I said, I think the under is interesting. All right, so let's keep moving on to the next fight. We have, this is the, what do you call it? The featured prelim here. We got Robbie Lawler going against Niko Price. We got Robbie Lawler, 41 years old, 5'11", with a 74-inch reach. Niko Price, 33 years old, 6 foot, with a 76-inch reach. We got Niko Price. He's going to be 8 years younger. He's going to have a 1-inch height advantage and a 2-inch reach advantage. Robbie Lawler is 1-4 in his last 5 fights. Lost to Ben Askren, Colby Covington, Neil Magny, beat Nick Diaz, and then lost to Brian Barberena by knockout. In terms of Niko Price, he is 1-3 and no contest in his last 5 fights. Got knocked out by Vicente Luque. No contest against Donald Cerrone. Decision loss against Pereira. Decision win against Oliveira. Knockout loss against Philip Rowe. So I was looking to potentially parlay up Niko Price. And then I watched tape on Niko Price, and there's no way. I'm concerned about Niko Price. This guy has taken a ton of damage throughout his career. I think this guy's dealing with a lot of injuries. He's a guy that used to be really active. Nowadays, he's not really as active. I think he's had a couple surgeries. And we saw Kevin Lee last night show up with those knee sleeves, right? Niko Price has been showing up with those knee sleeves. And I was telling you earlier, Weezy, those knee sleeves are probably the worst base for MMA. So we have a guy in Robbie Lawler who's clearly washed. He's 41 years old, but I wonder if Niko Price is a little washed, taking all this damage, all these injuries, 6 kids, right? And that's going to take a toll on you. So This is a weird fight. I would not recommend you can't lay minus 270 on someone like Niko Price. And I'm a huge Niko Price fan. I met the guy in Miami, cool guy. We got a pick. But my goodness, I mean, he's looked atrocious as of late. He's looked awful. I mean, getting knocked out by Phil Rowe, barely squeaking by Alex Oliveira, no contest against the ghost of Donald Cerrone. He took an absolute beating against Vicente Luque. Like, I haven't been impressed with Niko Price probably since like the Means fight, which was a long time ago at this point. You know, since then he has battled those injuries. He's now 33 years old. So we have two guys who I don't think we're getting anywhere, you know, near the best version of these guys. So I'm not laying minus 270 on Niko Price. I think somebody's getting served here. I think somebody's getting knocked out here. I think the fight to end by knockout is a bet I'll be looking at. But I would caution anybody parlaying up Niko Price this week at like minus 270. We have a lot of potential parlay pieces on this card. I don't really think Niko Price is one of them. And Bootsy agrees with me. Don't parlay up Niko Price, especially if you see him with those knee sleeves coming in there. I mean, I don't know. He looks off to me. Niko Price looks off in his last several fights. So, but obviously Robbie Lawler is like 70s, and he's taking a ton of damage as well. Weird fight, Weezy. Fun fight. It should be fun. I'm going to enjoy it. But in terms of betting it, I'm not so sure.
Super fun fight, but yeah, Gotti TV saying another 1-800 fight. I mean, how could it be anything but that? You're basically betting on which one of these guys is less washed.
Yeah.
And they've both looked pretty washed lately. You know, do you remember Nick Diaz shadow boxing? And they, you know, and people were like, oh, dude, Nick doesn't look good, man. You know, and then like Lawler goes out there and has a good round one, but then round two and round three happen. And it's like, wait, is Nick boxing up Robbie Lawler right now? And he was landing some good shots, man. And yeah, we haven't seen much good from either one of these guys. And with Robbie, you got a 41-year-old dude with 46 professional fights on that body of his. And you go back and you watch some of the slobber knockers that this dude has been in. There's no way that he could be in a good place physically with brain health. All that's it's got to be a nightmare getting out of bed in the morning if you're Robbie Lawler. And talk about Niko Price. He's had just as much damage in 23 fights as Lawler's had in 46. And then you got the 6 kids at home. Brady, we went out to breakfast here a couple of weeks ago, and I remember we had a couple of young kids in the booth behind us, and I had to take a nap after breakfast just from listening to these kids run their mouths for like 45 minutes. I can't imagine what it would be like to have 6 young kids at home after coming home from training, getting your ass beat by grown men in the gym, rolling around and other dudes sweat, and then you come home to 6 kids. Man, this is gonna be a fun fight to watch. But I mean, I guess I mean, there's probably some value on Lawler here, but I mean, I just can't see my money getting anywhere near this. I was looking at where the under 2.5 is. It's minus 170. That probably hits. You got to figure probably one of these guys folds like a lawn chair at some point, right?
Yep.
I mean, 9 finish losses for Lawler in his career, 5 finish losses and 6 career losses for Niko Price. I mean, somebody's getting served here.
Yeah, it's a dog or pass for me, but I mean, I'm not betting 41-year-old Robbie Lawler.
Yeah, I mean, I can't get to it either. You know, I mean, it's such a 1-800 gambler fight.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, I think Lawler is going to fight reckless. Niko Price has kind of like toned it down a little bit his last couple fights. Price used to be like a wild man. Now he's not so much anymore, I'd say. But yeah, Lawler's going to bring the fight out of Price, I think. These guys are going to stand there bang. Somebody's getting served in this one, I think.
Yeah, neither one of these guys attempts a lot of takedowns. And even if Price does, he's getting him at 20%. So I think this is going to stay standing, and somebody's going to land a big shot.
Yep. So, yeah, I was thinking about parlaying up Price just because you see the Robbie Lawler retirement fight 41, but I can't do it. Just give me the under instead. And I'm going to root for somebody to get served and knocked out.
Yeah, and I think that under 2.5 at minus 170 could be a decent parlay piece. It would be shocking to see this one go over 12.5.
Yeah, if it did, it'd be one of those wars where, they're getting like wobbled, getting dropped, 6 knockdowns. If Mark Goddard's reffing, then it probably does go over. But as long as Goddard's not in there, I got to find out if Goddard's making the trip out to Vegas. If so, we might all hold off on it. But if Goddard's not there, this fight should finish.
Yeah, that's for sure, man. It's going to be a fun fight, but not a fun one to gamble on.
Yeah. Sean, I don't know if this is Sean V with a alt account. Do you know if this is Sean V, just Sean K?
I think Sean V was actually here earlier.
But is he like using an alt account? How many Sean? Okay. I watched his last fight against Barberena. He actually was having success and hurt Barberena multiple times, but Barberena ended up hurting him and finishing him shortly after. But yeah, fun fight, but a fight that is definitely 1-800 gambler if I've ever seen one. Let's move on to the main card, Weezy. And we have Bo Nickal going against Tresean Gore. We got Bo Nickal, 27 years old, 6'1" with a 76-inch reach. Tresean Gore, 28 years old, 6 foot with a 75-inch reach. Nickal, he is 1 year younger, 1-inch height advantage and a 1-inch reach advantage. Bo Nickal was 4-0 in his only 4 fights. Made his debut against Jamie Pickett. Had 2 back-to-back submission wins in about a minute on both Contender Series fights. As far as Tresean Gore, he is 3-2 in his last 5 fights. Made his debut against Brian Battle, lost that fight by decision, lost by knockout against Cody Brundage, and then beat Josh Fremd by decision or submission his last time out. So obviously it's a wide line. I don't think Tresean Gore is terrible by any means. I think Tresean Gore actually has really good takedown defense. I think he's very physically strong. I think Tresean Gore has really solid, underrated grappling. I think Tresean Gore is a very good striker, just no volume, doesn't let his hands go. I think Tresean Gore is a good fighter. He's stuffing takedowns, against guys like, Brian Battle, guys like Cody Brundage, all that. That's great. You can throw all that out of the window. Nickal is going to take down Gore. And Nickal is going to take his back, and Nickal is going to choke him out probably in the first round. Bo Nickal, he's a blue belt in BJJ. Like, this guy's grappling is very, very good. Like, it kind of reminded me of like Dawson last night. He took down Damir Ismagulov in like a split second. Takes Damir Ismagulov's back. That's kind of like Bo Nickal. So I think Bo Nickal will have no problem whatsoever taking down Tresean Gore. And like I said, when this fight does hit the mat, Bo Nickal's grappling is improving. It's legit. And I think it is enough to finish Tresean Gore. Some things we do have to talk about, because this is a minus 1,400 favorite, which, by the way, I know we joke around, Bo Nickal. I'll probably make a tweet later saying, oh, I'm going to lay 14 units on Bo Nickal. No, I'm not. Don't put Bo Nickal in your parlays. It adds no value, and it just doesn't make sense to do so. But yeah, when we're talking about a minus 1,400 favorite, what we have to ask ourselves, what happens if Bo Nickal does not finish Tresean Gore in the first round? Because Bo Nickal expends a ton of energy, whether it's on the feet, throwing hard shots, whether it's wrestling, whether it's the submission attempts where he's putting a ton of energy into those submission attempts, all his strength into those squeezes, right? What happens if Tresean Gore lasts 5 minutes? What does Bo Nickal look like in the second round? We don't know, and we're not going to find out in this fight, but it's something you got to kind of think about. But yeah, I like Bo Nickal here. I think we're getting a discount on the under 1.5 rounds. It's minus 200, which it's shocky, but I went back and looked at the prices for the Jamie Pickett under, and Bet Rivers had the under 1.5 in the Pickett fight at minus 400. Minus 400 for an under 1.5. That is an 80% probability. And now we're getting at minus 200, which I think is could be generous, because you got to think Bo Nickal's a minus 1,400 favorite. If he wins this fight, it's going to be in the first 7.5 minutes. If he does not win the fight in the first 7.5 minutes, there are some serious problems, and I'm not even sure if he wins the fight if it goes 7.5. So instead of laying 14 units to win 1 on Bo Nickal, I might just bet the under 1.5 instead. Bo Nickal first round sub. We'll see if they mess it up again. Last time they actually messed it up. They had Bo Nickal first round sub at like good plus money. A lot of people got on it. It cashed pretty easy. We'll see if they do that again. But yeah, this is Bo Nickal all day. Weezy, I heard you had a hot take for this fight.
Yeah, I like Bo Nickal here, you guys. And then that's why we try to get this show out early so that we can kind of point you guys in the right direction. Brady and I do this for a living. We watch tape. We know who these fighters are. Bo Nickal, most people probably don't know this. He went to Penn State. Very good wrestler there. I heard he had some accolades, but yeah, minus 1,400. I mean, what are we supposed to do with this? At this point, like the only bettable side is Tresean Gore, and you just hope that Nickal tweaks his knee or some shit like that. I mean, it's the fight game. Weird things happen sometimes. And let's face it, we are missing a bunch of information about Bo Nickal. How much information do you think you could possibly have from a guy whose mixed martial arts career has lasted 5.35 minutes thus far? You know, what does he look like in the second round? How does he respond if he gets hit? You know, what happens if he winds up on his back? You know, wrestlers are shit off their back, dude. You know, so what happens if he gets put on his back? There's a lot of questions that still need to be answered about Bo Nickal. So, yeah, I won't be laying minus 1,400. I think he wins this fight. But, like, Tresean Gore round 2 at, like, plus 2,800 or some shit might be worth a tenth of a unit, you know? Just to see, you know, if this does get out, you know, past 5 minutes. Adrenaline dumps are very real things, especially in front of live crowds. And especially, you know, if you're used to getting everybody out of there in 2 minutes, what happens if somebody does show some resilience? So we got to ask ourselves those questions about Tresean Gore this week. You know, can he push Bo to a place that Bo hasn't been put yet in his mixed martial arts career, like which has lasted 5 minutes? So a lot of questions here left to be answered, but this kid Nickal needs obviously, you know, a fantastic prospect with the best base for MMA that there is, and that's, you know, just very high level wrestling.
I thought the best base for MMA is just that bleach blonde hair.
No, it's not. It's definitely wrestling, dude. It's always wrestling, because the wrestlers always get to decide where the fight takes place. You want it standing and you're a good defensive wrestler, you keep it standing. You want it on the ground and you're a good offensive wrestler, you can get it there. So it's always wrestling, and that's why Bo Nickal's minus 1,400, despite the fact that we don't really know anything about him yet.
Yeah. Richard, 140 units to win 10.
That's what we're talking about, right? Betting more units than you actually have, since you already only have 100 units, you know. But yeah, man, it's one of those things. What are you supposed to do?
Yeah, but it is a hot take here. Mushroom saying it right now. Everyone will be picking Nickal. You'll hear it on all podcasts. You'll hear it all over Twitter, claiming it's a hot take. And you got to remember, you heard it here first on Stat Dickers on Sunday.
Always, dude. We come to you. That's why we're first to market, so that you can find out that we do like Bo Nickal this week. We also like Tatsuro Taira this week, and Jack Della Maddalena. And you heard it here first. All these other frauds out there later on this week are going to be telling you the same shit, but they're watching right now and they're writing it down, and they're saying, you know what, I'm going to pretend like this is my idea.
Yep. We're going to hear a lot of crazy Bo Nickal sub-1 predictions for sure.
It's great.
All right.
Now we got a good one here.
Yes, we have a very good one. We have Jalin Turner going against Dan Hooker. We got Jalin Turner, 28 years old, 6'3", with a 77-inch reach. We got Dan Hooker, 33 years old, 6 foot with a 75-inch reach. We got Jalin Turner, 5 years younger. Jalin Turner with a 3-inch height advantage and a 2-inch reach advantage. Jalin Turner, he is 4-1 in his last 5 fights, a submission win against Brock Weaver, a submission win against Eros Medic, a knockout win against Jamie Malarkey, a submission win against Brad Riddell, a decision loss against Mateus Gamrot. And as far as Dan Hooker, he is 2-3 in his last 5 fights, knockout loss against Michael Chandler, decision win against Nasrat Hakparast, a submission loss against Islam Makhachev, a knockout loss to Arnold Allen, and then a knockout win against Claudio Puelles. So Dan Hooker cashed both of us a nice bet his last time. Believe it or not, Dan Hooker was around minus 150 against Claudio Puelles, and that was when the famous "Is Dan Hooker a bum?" rant came up, and he proved that no, he's not a bum, but this is a completely different matchup. I mean, Jalin Turner is not Claudio Puelles. I think Jalin Turner is the real deal. This guy's only 28 years old. This guy's frame for the division is wild. This guy is 6'3" at 155 pounds. Just makes no sense whatsoever. Jalin Turner has so much power on the feet. Like, I thought I picked Gamrot in his last fight. You could easily score that fight for Turner. Like, isn't damage like the #1 criteria for judging? If so, Jalin Turner wins that fight, because he had Gamrot hurt in like every round. Like, Gamrot was like getting wobbled, getting dropped. And yeah, Gamrot was able to get a couple takedowns, but Gamrot didn't do crap in that fight besides just take down Turner. But apparently that was enough to win the fight. So I thought Turner won that fight. I thought Turner very well could be on a nice win streak here. But he's going against Dan Hooker, who I think Dan Hooker might try to wrestle here. I really do. We saw Hooker go to the wrestling against Nazareth Hackprast. Turner himself said that he thinks Dan Hooker is going to wrestle, because why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you try to wrestle Jalin Turner? If Dan Hooker tries to strike with Jalin Turner, he's getting knocked out. Dan Hooker's taken a ton of damage throughout his career, and we didn't have to worry about that in the Poyas fight. We didn't have to worry about that. I'm worried about that in the Turner fight because, Jalin Turner hits like an absolute truck. It may not look like Turner hits hard, but he hits very hard. He gets reactions out of guys. He puts guys down, and he finishes them. Jalin Turner is one of the most dangerous guys in the division. So I think Dan Hooker is kind of screwed here. I remember DraftKings Sportsbook opened up Jalin Turner like minus 130 like a month and a half ago, and I was going to potentially bet it. I did not get to it. Now we have Jalin Turner at like minus 240. And yeah, I think Turner wins, but here are my concerns about laying minus 240. Minus 130, yeah, that's a really good bet. You beat a lot of linemen, but that's great. Minus 240, my concern with Jalin Turner is this. I think the striking defense is a huge concern for Jalin Turner. You can see it right there. His striking defense is sitting at like 41%. Not good. The takedown defense is a question mark, I say. We saw him, of course, the Matt Frivola fight, and then we saw the Gamrot fight. Dan Hooker, he probably will wrestle here, so maybe Dan Hooker does have success in the wrestling. So the takedown defense, the striking defense, and the chin of Jalin Turner, those are three things that would worry me in terms of laying minus 240. But I think Jalin Turner wins this fight. I think he wins it by knockout. I think it's early knockout. I don't think Dan Hooker can eat some of these shots coming his way. So I like Jalin Turner, first round knockout. Am I going to be laying minus 240? Absolutely not. But I was tempted on that minus 130 opener to minus 150. But minus 240, I mean, it's a little wide. I might look at like Turner inside the distance, maybe get plus money, but I doubt it. And then, of course, like an under 2.5 potentially. But I like Turner here. I think it's a good winnable fight for him. But Dan Hooker, he's not a bum. He's not a bum, but I think he does get finished.
Yeah, I backed up the truck on Jalin Turner against Gamrot. I had 1.5 units on his money line, and I think I had like 3 units on the finish only prop at big time plus money. And yeah, damage is what the judges look for, but only when I'm betting the wrestler that gets control time.
Okay.
See, that's how that works, So if I bet Jalin Turner, and he does all the damage, then they're going to give it to the wrestler, which is exactly what they did with Gamrot. But yeah, Jalin Turner is a serious problem. At 6'3" for a lightweight with a 77-inch reach, and especially he's a southpaw. Those good straight strikes that he throws. And you know what I love about Jalin is that he doesn't really, he will lead. And when he does, he'll lead with the jab, he'll lead with the teep kick, and he can like maintain distance with that. But every time you swing at Jalin Turner, there's something coming back at you. And he's such a good counter puncher. He's so effective and so busy on the counter that he's just such a problem to stand with. So it's going to be interesting to see how Hooker handles this, because he can wrestle. He's got 11 takedowns in 20 UFC fights, but he's only attempted 30. And here's the thing. 30 takedown attempts for Hooker, 74 against Hooker. So Hooker's seen a lot more takedown attempts than he's attempted, but yet it's Hooker who's out-controlling his opponents 19% to 9.5%. So he's very efficient in the grappling exchanges. So it would behoove him to get this fight away from distance striking range, where he's going to be at a 2-inch reach disadvantage, at a 3-inch height advantage, and at a serious power disadvantage as well, as Jalin Turner has got a 100% finish rate and serious power in his hands. So Hooker's got more ways to win this fight, though. I mean, he's more experienced. He's got 11 more UFC fights, 130 more minutes in the UFC cage. He's fought the better brand of competition overall, the much more experienced competition, and his wins come over much more experienced guys. This guy's went 5 rounds with Dustin Poirier in an absolute war. So this is a step up for Jalin Turner for sure, but he's the kind of fighter that you are gonna back, because when you watch him fight, everything that he does, it jumps off the page at you. He's got serious power. He's got great submission grappling. He can get submissions that other dudes can't because of the length of his limbs. And he's still young. He's only 28, guys. And he's really experienced for a 28-year-old. 19 pro fights, 7 years as a pro, 9 in the UFC. He's 6-3 in the UFC, and like one of the losses was, very close against a tough opponent in Gamrot. So, I think the Hooker money line is kind of interesting here. I think he might be able to find some ways to win minutes in this fight. Just being the more experienced guy, being the guy with more tools in the toolbox, I think. But Jalin Turner is on the rise. He's extremely talented, very difficult to deal with, and he's a very efficient grappler in his own right.
Yeah, I mean, we got to be honest with ourselves. Jalin Turner, I like him just as much as the next guy, but minus 250, come on, it's wide. It's a pass fight for me. I think Jalin Turner knocks him out in the first round, but, look who Dan Hooker's losing to. Arnold Allen, Islam Makhachev.
And at 145. A lot of these losses are at 145, Brady, where he was cutting entirely too much weight.
Allen, Islam's pretty good, right?
I've heard of him.
Okay. Michael Chandler, he's all right.
I've heard of him. He was a Bellator guy.
Yeah, and then Dustin Poirier's the hot sauce guy, right?
That's right. He has delicious hot sauce, man.
So those are his last 4 losses. I'm not saying Dan Hooker wins this fight, but I'm just saying minus 250. Let's calm down a little bit. But yeah, he opened up like minus 130. I know a lot of people that got minus 130 on Hooker or on Turner on DraftKings like a month and a half ago, holding on to that Turner ticket for a while. And yeah, heck yeah, I almost got there myself. But when I went in to place the bet, it moved to like minus 175. And then went to like minus 190, and then it's going to keep getting wide. So I would just maybe caution people in terms of laying this price tag on him, because like you said, Dan Hooker, he does have some paths to victory. But what completely sold me on the Jalin Turner side, and I'm not betting him, but what completely sold me, Weezy, was this. We're going to bring up the Instagram of Dan Hooker, and we're going to go to the story, and I'm going to see if I can zoom in. There it is.
Blonde hair.
Yeah.
Blonde hair and a brown beard.
I don't like it. Do you?
Yeah. This blonde hair thing, I don't understand it, man. When I was these people's age, you just didn't dye your hair for no reason. I mean, I still don't dye my hair. My hair's going gray. You're not going to catch me like dyeing it like I'm Peter Popoff over here. I'm not doing that. So I don't know, man. I don't get it.
No, I mean, I know Elvis Brenner had a great performance last night. Maybe that motivated Dan Hooker to go out there and dye his hair this color. But outside of that, I'm not sure what's really going on. If he's training with the shoot the box guys this time around, or he's still in?
No, man, he's still over there at City Kickboxing with Volk and all the rest of them. I mean, like, there are so many Australian fighters on this card: Shannon Ross, Jimmy Crute, Volk, Hooker, Plessis and Simon from South Africa, and then you got Hooker as well. So I mean, Whittaker, just a ton of Australian and New Zealand guys here.
Yeah, Dick's Insider. Brady saying if Hooker wins, we go blunt. No, but I do have a surprise for the Liang Na fight week. I did go on Amazon and I found myself a Liang Na wig. And I'll pull it up in a little bit, but I found a nice wig on Amazon that looks just like Liang Na, and I am planning on actually purchasing the wig. It's about $20 and wearing that for the Liang Na fight week. So that's a nice treat to look forward to.
That's badass. You got to put that on Stat Diggers for Liang Na fight week. Who she got?
I think Ariana Lipsky, and I think Lipsky's gonna JJ Aldridge.
Nice. That's going to be such a good fight. She's going to gas out in a minute and a half. I can't wait.
Yeah, JJ Aldridge is going to get her first finish in the UFC.
Yeah, no, it'll be such a juiced under 1.5, and JJ's so not a finisher. It's going to be hilarious.
Yeah, so let's see. So it's something like this. Let's see here. What do you think? Is this Liang Na?
Yeah, that's a good one, man. That's for sure.
The mushroom discount. Shout out to Mushroom. I don't know what that is. That's definitely not Liang Na. Oh, this is perfect. Look at this. The
Yeah, there
girl
we go.
golden mushroom.
Yes, there we go. Mushroom wig.
Does Liang not wear that out to the gate? Because that looks exactly the same.
She wouldn't be able to keep it on the way that she fights, man. She fights like her hair's on fire.
You might have like super glue it to her because
yeah, that's what you'd have to do. You'd have to shave the head and super glue it on.
My goodness. But yeah, so she's fighting, I think maybe August, September, but I will be ordering that on Amazon and wearing it on the show because why not? All right. What fight we were talking about the Hooker fight. We'll move on to the people's main event. We have Robert Whittaker going against Dricus du Plessis. I've been checking out the chat during the show, Weezy. This is all the chat's talking about. A lot of people thinking Dricus can pull off the upset here. We got Robert Whittaker. He's 32 years old, 6 foot with a 73-inch reach. Dricus du Plessis, he is 29 years old, 6'1" with a 76-inch reach. We have du Plessis 3 years younger. Du Plessis with a 1-inch height advantage and a 3-inch reach advantage. We have Robert Whittaker 4-1 in his last 5 fights. Decision win against Till, Cannonier, Gastelum, Marvin Vettori, and then he lost against Israel Adesanya. Very close fight. And then Dricus du Plessis, 5-0 in his last 5 fights, made his debut against Marcus Perez, knocked him out, knocked out Trevin Giles, Officer Trevin Giles. He won a decision against Brad Tavares, submitted Darren Till, and then knocked out Derek Brunson. So I was listening to a video. So Renato Moicano, shout out to Moicano. What's his saying? He fell in love with the box, Weezy. Is that what he said?
Yeah. I fell in love with the box. That's what he said after the it was the Hadzovich fight when he just went through him like he destroyed him with the grappling. Yeah, he's like, I can't do this. I can't box anymore. What was I thinking? You know?
He is hilarious. And that Hadzovich fight, that was the fight where one of the two got mad. I think it was Moicano got mad.
Moicano.
Yeah, because he wanted to keep fighting, and Hadzovich was like, "Why'd you submit me?" Like, like what? So, but anyway, I'm like, Moicano's hilarious, and he does like a podcast now, which I think is awesome. But he said, and I quote, something along the lines of, "You have to be good if you're in the UFC, unless you're Dricus du Plessis." And I cannot agree anymore. I was watching tape on Dricus, and I was just dying laughing at this guy. He is the most untechnical, sloppy fighter I've ever seen. Like it's wild. So it looks like he's gassed out in every single fight. Like 1 minute in, apparently he has like a breathing issue. Yeah. He says he's not tired, but I mean he's lying. I mean he looks clearly fatigued. I mean he looks like he's drunk in there, and somehow this guy's pulling off wins. And I've picked Dricus du Plessis in all of his fights. I'm undefeated in terms of picking Dricus du Plessis fights, but my goodness, this is Robert Whittaker, skill for skill. It's not even close. But would it really shock anybody if Dricus du Plessis went out there and memed Robert Whittaker? No, it wouldn't. Robert Whittaker is better everywhere by a mile, but Dricus du Plessis just finds a way. He finds a way to get the win. I mean, take a look at the guys Robert Whittaker is losing to, and it's guys like Israel Adesanya. And that's his last loss in almost 10 years, Israel Adesanya. So a lot of people are picking Dricus. And the only way I see Dricus winning is some like meme type finish, which is on the table because that's really how Dricus, gets the job done. So I'm obviously going Whittaker, the better fighter by a mile, but you can't lay minus 400 against Dricus du Plessis, who's just a question mark, who's just a wild card, who's just a wild man. It's going to be a fun fight. It's going to be probably my favorite fight of the night just because it is a Dricus fight and it's extreme chaos. But it's going to be a sloppy fight for sure. But I like slop. I like it sloppy. So give me Whittaker. I think the unders, it was solid at minus 125. I should have bet that. I didn't. The line's gone now. But I think some type of violence here is solid. Dricus been to decision once in like 21 fights. And the one fight he did go the distance. He should have been probably stopped. So give me Whittaker by finish. But I understand what people are seeing with Dricus. I mean, he could win by like flying toe hold or spinning blind kick. I don't know. It's gonna be some type of weird win if Dricus wins because there's no way he should beat Whittaker. But it wouldn't shock me if he does because the guy's just a wild card.
Yeah, so he's 5-0 in the UFC. He beats Marcus Perez, not a big surprise. Trevin Giles, Trevin's like a good boxer. He's got a really nice jab. He's Officer Trevin Giles is a very technical guy. Brad Tavares, very technical kickboxer. Darren Till, very technical kickboxer. And then Brunson, a bit of a wild man, but he's a wrestler, you know? And the thing about Dricus is, yeah, he's not good. I mean, there's no striking coaches are out there like showing their students Dricus du Plessis footage. He brings his feet with him. He blasts forward. He throws in combination. But the thing is that styles always make fights. And Dricus brings a different style. And it's going to be a style that I don't think Robert's going to particularly deal well with, because Robert is a technical kickboxer. What does he do? With the best thing that Robert does is he hides his head kick behind his jab. And man, is it pretty when he lands that. You know, and he's knocked people out with that. People know that it's coming, but he sets it up all the time. It works almost every time. But the problem is that you kind of need an opponent who's going to stand in front of you. Dricus just doesn't do that. Dricus just brings wars. He moves forward. You know, when people are bringing their feet with them when they're striking, all technicality kind of goes out the window, really. It's hard to land big shots when you're backing up. It's hard to land big shots when your opponent is throwing in combination while walking forward. And that's what Dricus does. He blasts forward for about 5 seconds and throws about 8 punches. Then he gets back at distance and stays out of range and circles. And then he saves up until he has another, opportunity to blast, and then he does it again. Look at who Whittaker's been fighting. Vettori, Adesanya, Gastelum, Cannonier, Till, all technical guys. It's going to be a different style of fight. I don't mind the du Plessis plus money here, because he is somebody that will make somebody that's technical and has good footwork and has good fundamentals. It's going to make them uncomfortable because of the style that he fights. And there's something to the way that Dricus is doing things in there. He's finding a ton of success. He's 19-2. He's finished 18 of those 19 wins, and it should have been 19. So he always finds ways to hurt his opponent and get him out of there. Robert Whittaker has only finished 36% of his UFC wins. So he's definitely somebody that's a lot more of a minute winner, a lot more of a technical point fighter. This is a 3-round fight, man. I think Dricus is live.
I mean, he's live against anybody. He's live against Francis Ngannou. Like, he's live against just the way he's so unpredictable, so wild. And I'm completely joking. Francis would kill him in 30 seconds. But yeah, I mean, I you can't bet the Whittaker money line, but I'm not running to the window to bet Dricus either. But it is a clear dog or pass. Skill for skill, I don't think it's even close. But like you said, it might not matter, because this is going to be not a technical fight whatsoever. I do think Whittaker could finish. I mean, he hasn't finished anybody in a long time, somebody said. But I mean, look who he's fighting. Marvin Vettori.
Yeah.
You don't finish
You're
him.
not finishing those guys, yeah.
Kelvin Gastelum, you don't finish him. Jared Cannonier, you don't finish him. Yoel Romero, you don't finish him. Darren Till, you probably can finish him, but that was when Darren Till was halfway decent. So and then Adesanya, you don't finish Adesanya either. So yeah, I think somebody does get finished here, but the price kind of got away. That under was sitting at -125. That should have been a bet. But yeah, at this point, nothing's sticking out. I mean, like, yeah, maybe you do take a dog shot on Dricus here because of the unpredictability, but I don't know if I'll do it personally. It looks like the under is now like -145 and Whittaker's -410. Yeah, Dricus is probably one of the more popular dogs of the week. A lot of people like this guy. Somebody got really mad at me on my video for saying, Dricus, wasn't that great. And he did it was like a novel he wrote. Dricus, he's going to be champion. He's going to be the best fighter in the world. Like, people really like this Dricus guy. And I get it. He's a fun guy to watch. I picked him in every fight, but I can't pick him against Whittaker. No way.
Yeah, I mean, Whittaker's just been doing this forever, 14-4 in the UFC. And then like you say, look who the losses are to. And I mean, this guy is absolutely elite.
Yeah. All right. Man, a lot of people in the chat like Dricus. So I get it. But I don't know. That would kind of surprise me. But we'll move on to the next fight. Then we have the co-main event. We have Brandon Moreno going against Alexander Pantoja. We got Brandon Moreno, 29 years old. 5'7" with a 70-inch reach. Pantoja, 33 years old, 5'5" with a 67-inch reach. We got Pantoja 4 years older. Pantoja with a 2-inch height disadvantage and a 3-inch reach disadvantage. Brandon Moreno, he is 3-1 and 1 draw in his last 5 fights. Had that draw against Davison, submission win against Davison, decision loss against Davison, a knockout win against Kai France, and then a knockout win against Davis and Figueiredo. As far as Pantoja, 4-1 in his last 5 fights, knockout win against Match Now, decision loss against Askar Askarov, decision win against Manel Kopp, submission win against both Royval and Alex Perez. So Pantoja has always been the dark horse for me. This is a guy that I did think would fight for a title, one day. Didn't think it would take this long, and now at 33 years old, but he's a guy that I've always had my eye on. His only losses in the UFC come to guys like Davis and Figueiredo, the champ, and then guys like Askar Askarov, who I thought had a ton of upside, but I think Askar retired or something. He's dealing with some health issues, but Askar Askarov is a very good fighter. He lost to him as well. The big narrative in this fight, and it's a narrative you really can't look at all, but Pantoja's 2-0 against Brandon Moreno. But those fights were just so long ago. The first fight was in the Tough House. It was the tough season with the 16 flyweights. It was Pantoja, the number 1 seed, Moreno, number 16 seed. And Moreno arguably went out there and won that first round. And then the second round, Pantoja took him down, took his back, and choked him out. Fast forward, they fight a couple years later. Pantoja just dominates Brandon Moreno, 30-26 on 2 of the judges' scorecards. Wasn't even close. Took his foot off the gas a little bit in the third round, but a judge even gave him that round as well. So just domination there. And then, but that was 6-7 years ago at this point. I think Brandon Moreno is a completely different fighter, as is Alexander Pantoja. I think this fight's going to be a lot more competitive than it was, 6-7 years ago, and then 9-10 years ago in the Tough House. So completely different fight. If this fight was 3 rounds, I think I'd be all over Pantoja here. The thing about Pantoja that scares me a little bit is the cardio. I don't know if we've ever seen him in the 4th round, in the 5th round, and we've seen him slow down in the 3rd round of fights. He was really, really tired in the Askar Askarov fight, which is a very high-paced fight. He was tired. He looked like he was completely gassed out in that Royval fight. That was only 6-minute long fight. He was able to get the sub, but he was looking very tired in that 2nd round. So, what does Pantoja look like in that 4th and 5th? Probably not great. I think early on, Pantoja has a lot of success here. I think he's the better striker. I think he can maybe even win some grappling exchanges here. But the 5-round aspect of things scares me a little bit, because we know Moreno can go 5 rounds, no problem. We know the cardio is not an issue, whereas with Pantoja, it is a question mark for me at least. So I think this money line is really wide on Moreno. I think it's going to be competitive. If I was to bet Moreno, I'd bet him after the 1st or 2nd round. I think we're going to get a much better price tag on him. But I think it's going to be a very, very close fight. I think Pantoja can win these first 2. I think Moreno probably wins the 4th and 5th, and I think it might all come down to the 3rd, that type of situation. But I think I might pick Pantoja here to win a very, very close decision. Like I said, the money line doesn't make a ton of sense to me, but I get what people are kind of seeing with Moreno having that 5-round experience. So very close fight here, in my opinion. Not really lined that way, but I think it is at least. Weezy, what are your thoughts on this fight?
Yeah, so Brandon Moreno's 2 inches taller. He's got a 3-inch reach advantage. He's almost 4 years younger, and he's been fighting a ton of 5-round fights. 6 of them at the UFC level, while Pantoja has 0. So those are all obstacles in Pantoja's way. How is he going to perform in the 4th and 5th rounds? We don't really know. How is he going to perform under the bright lights with a belt at stake? We don't know. We've seen Brandon Moreno doing that now for a while. And yeah, the conditioning. Obviously, how is he going to be able to push the pace in the 4th and 5th against a guy that we know is out there against people like Davis and Figueiredo, who pushes a pace, and he's looking good in the 4th and the 5th rounds here. So watched both of the Pantoja-Moreno fights earlier today. Yeah, and Alexander, he dominated the 2nd one for sure. The first one, he had Brandon hurt quite a bit. Landed some shots in the 1st round that Brandon clearly didn't like. But yeah, Brandon is the younger guy. He's the more tested guy. He's actually got more cage time than Pantoja. He's actually got 2 more UFC fights and almost 90 more minutes in the octagon than Pantoja. He's been busier lately. He's beating guys that Pantoja's losing to. This is a great fight. Pantoja still has got a lot left, but I can't back him not knowing what he's going to look like in the 4th and 5th rounds. Because here's what I know, Brady. You're not knocking out Brandon Moreno. This guy's durability is ridiculous. So I kind of feel like, it would be a great bet for this fight, in my opinion, is a Brandon Moreno finish only prop, because Brandon's never been finished in 29 fights. Pantoja's never been finished in 30 fights, but we've seen Brandon Moreno in a 4th and 5th round before. So we know that the conditioning is going to be there. We know that there's no quitting this kid. We're going to have to find out how dangerous Pantoja is now that he is going to have to pace himself over 25 minutes rather than the usual 15 minutes that we've seen him for his entire career fighting at here at the UFC level. All 15-minute fights. So there's a little bit of missing information about Pantoja here, and you're getting the guy that's 3.5 years older at a 3-inch reach disadvantage and a 2-inch height disadvantage here. Although I do believe that Alexander Pantoja is going to be the more dangerous submission grappler. I think that this is a close fight everywhere else. It's just that there's questions left to be answered about Pantoja that have already been answered about Brandon Moreno. So I'm feeling a little bit safer on the Moreno side here.
Yeah, it's a tough one, but in a tough fight, I mean, I'm going with the pretty big plus money there. And Mark is saying Pantoja at plus 170 is my best straight bet value play for UFC 290. It makes no sense to me why Pantoja, who defeated Moreno 2 times and finished without Perez, is an underdog. Yeah, the only thing I'm picking Pantoja, but I don't look into those Moreno fights as a lot of people are. Like, those were so long ago. Like, do you know exactly how long ago those fights were, Weezy?
Yeah, I mean, I've got my UFC 290 Tapology page up here. So for Brandon Moreno, the Pantoja fight in the house was, oh my God, it was so long ago. Kaikara, France, Askarov, Pantoja. 2018 was the one in the UFC, and then the exhibition one was 2016. So Brandon Moreno is 29 years old. So we're talking about a fight in 2014, 9 years ago. Dude, he was 20. And then the next time he lost to Pantoja, he was 22. So, but there's something to be said for the confidence that you're going to have knowing that you've already beaten this dude twice.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not like Pantoja's old yet. He's 33. He's getting there, but he's only 3.5 years older, than Moreno. So it's not like he's much older or much more tread on the tires. So it's a very interesting fight. I just don't know how Pantoja is going to respond in the 4th and the 5th, and I really feel like the fight is going to the 4th and 5th rounds here.
Yeah, I might look at like the finish only for Pantoja, because I know Moreno's never been finished officially. Obviously, Pantoja finished him in the Tough House, but I mean, if Pantoja takes your back, you are probably getting finished. This guy's grappling's unbelievable, and then in terms of the power, I think Pantoja has more power. So I maybe look at that finish only for Pantoja, but I think this fight probably does go the distance, and I think it's probably close. I think it all comes down to the judges, and the judges suck. So, yeah, I'd much rather be on that plus money. So, yeah, plus 167, it looks like. I was taking a hard look at plus 170, and I might be pulling the trigger on it because the line doesn't make a ton of sense. If it was 3 rounds, I'd be max betting Pantoja. I really would be. But the 4th and 5th round, the cardio is the one thing kind of holding me back for going crazy on it.
Yeah, that missing information that we already know about Moreno, in the championship rounds is what's keeping me off the Pantoja side, because if he had a couple of 5-round fights and he got a 4th round finish in one of them or went to a decision and pushed the pace for a full 25 minutes, I'd be like, all right, yeah, plus 170, I got no problem taking that plus money number on the guy that's 2-0 in the previous matchups. But I'm missing that information. And like I say, if it was a 3-round fight, plus 150, plus 170, I'd be all over it. But I can't do it because I'm missing that information.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people are under the agreement, and I think it probably does too. This fight probably goes the distance, but if Pantoja comes out and fights like he did in the Perez fight or the Royval fight, you remember the Perez fight? He just came out like a complete wild man. I don't know if this fight goes 25. You can't fight like that for 25. So. But the looks like the under 3.5 is plus 120. So I don't know what I'm doing with the total yet, but I don't know. I feel like this fight might finish potentially. Like, what if Pantoja gasses out late? And obviously Pantoja is very dangerous early. I don't know. I don't have a a great read on this fight. But what I do think is I think this line is a little wide.
Here's what I think, Brady. How about fight starts round 4? Neither one of these guys has ever been finished in their career. So we know Pantoja can go 15. We know you're not finishing Brandon Moreno unless you submit him. So maybe fight starts round 4, since neither one of these guys has ever been finished. Gives us, a reasonable amount of time for Pantoja to survive, and it probably won't be too juiced.
Yeah. Sweaty. I mean, I won't be betting it, but it makes sense. It makes sense. I don't bet overs. I almost bet overs last week, and I would have lost them both. So it would be sweaty, but yeah, I think both guys are just super tough. I don't think we see a finish unless it's maybe. I think Moreno could get a late finish if Pantoja does gas out. And like I said, if Pantoja takes Moreno's back, I think it could sub him. But other than that, I think it probably goes. All right, main event time. We have Alexander Volkanovski going against Yair Rodriguez. We got Volkanovski, 34 years old, 5'6" with a 71-inch reach. Rodriguez, 30 years old, 5'11" with a 71-inch reach. We got Yair, 4 years younger. Yair with a 5-inch height advantage, same reach there. We got Volkanovski, 4-1 in his last 5 fights. Decision win against Max Holloway, Brian Ortega, knockout win against Korean Zombie, then a decision win against Max Holloway, and a decision loss against Islam Makhachev. As far as Yair Rodriguez, no contest against Jeremy Stephens, decision win against Jeremy Stephens, decision loss against Max Holloway, knockout win against Brian Ortega, then a submission win against Josh Emmett. Yair's been looking very, very good as of late. He did get hurt pretty bad in the Emmett fight. Didn't officially get dropped, but he got hurt. Emmett got on top, almost finished him, was able to survive, came back, landed some nice body shots on Emmett, and then finished him with a submission. And then he technically was like a TKO injury win against Brian Ortega. Didn't learn a lot about Yair in that fight. And then against Holloway, made a very good account of himself. I think for that fight, I had a bet with somebody. I think it might have been probably Mellon, where I was like, if Max Holloway loses this fight, I'm going to shave my head. I think that was the bet that night. And it was actually a lot closer than I thought it was going to be. So yeah, I mean, Yair's been looking really good, but he's taken on Volkanovski here. Weezy, very, very good main event here. What are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how, what Volkanovski's so good at is being in and out, right? He hangs out just outside of boxing range where you can't hit him. Then he explodes into range with that jab that he has. And he'll sometimes just throw the jab, or other times he'll have a combination behind the jab. And then as soon as that last punch is thrown or that last kick is thrown, he's right back out in a straight line, just out of range. And he's so good. 53.5% accuracy over a very large sample size is well above average for distance striking accuracy for the featherweight division. He's also got above average 61.5% striking defense. He's landing 6.54 at distance, only absorbing 4.13. So that's a positive 2.41 distance striking differential and a 1.58 to 1 ratio. Now, Yair's also got really good distance striking numbers, positive 1.6 differential, positive 1.37 ratio, lands 5.93. It's well above average with his volume, solid defense at 59.5%. So these guys are going to be really good on the feet. That's both where they're most comfortable. The thing is that a lot of the guys that Volkanovski have been fighting are more boxers than they are kickboxers. And Yair Rodriguez is going to be somebody that it's going to be a lot more challenging to maintain range against, because you don't just have to worry about the boxing of a Max Holloway. You got to worry about the kicks of Yair Rodriguez here. And Volkanovski doesn't really pressure that much. He's very intelligent with his pressure. He pressures, but still stays just out of range, and he explodes in and comes back out. So I don't know if that's going to be as effective for him against Yair. Yair was boxing up Max Holloway at range. We had to see Max Holloway kind of for the first time in years actually go to the grappling in order to win those later rounds against Yair Rodriguez, because Yair was landing big shots and a lot of calf kicks, Brady. A lot of calf kicks against Max Holloway. So, that's something that Volkanovski's going to have to deal with as well, is that, Yair is so effective with his legs as well as with his hands. He brings a power that, Volk hasn't seen really, from Max Holloway. from Brian Ortega. Islam Makhachev up a weight class, that's a completely different story. But, this one's going to be at 145, and Yair Rodriguez is very long, very tall for the division, and he gives that extra threat of maybe being able to manage distance just as well, if not better, than Volkanovski here in this big cage. It's going to be a fascinating main event. But I actually kind of think that Yair Rodriguez, if he can keep this fight standing, could probably keep this fight close. And he might be landing the more eye-catching strikes. What do you think?
I was muted, but I think Volkanovski is a really smart fighter. I would like to see him wrestle in this fight because I have serious question marks about Yair's wrestling, and I have for a while, ever since the Frankie Edgar fight, where he kind of got exposed. Edgar took him down. Yair showed nothing off his back, and since then we haven't really seen it tested all that much. We saw him go out there and knock out the Korean Zombie. Zombie didn't wrestle. The no contest against Stevens. And then in the second fight with Stevens, Yair almost finishes Stevens, and then Stevens starts to wrestle in that second and third whenever Yair's gassed, and Yair really doesn't have an answer off his back. And then we saw Holloway go out there, take him down, almost sub Yair twice. I think it was the third round, the fourth round. He got into mount easily. Max Holloway, who, like I said, never wrestles. And then we saw Ortega get him down. That fight ended early. We didn't get to see a ton. Josh Emmett took him down. Emmett doesn't really wrestle. I want to be shocked if Volkanovski wrestles here. And like I said, I don't know if Yair's ground game is he's dangerous. He's an active guard, but he can be stuck on his back, and he can be dominated on the mat. So, yeah, I think Volkanovski would be wise to wrestle here. I like violence in this fight quite a bit. It's kind of a clash of styles where we have Yair, like a lot of his 5-round fights are finishing, and Volkanovski, it's like the complete opposite. And then you look at who Volkanovski's fighting, and it's Max Holloway 3 times. And as we all know, he does not, you do not finish Max Holloway. And then Brian Ortega, who's just stupid tough. And that fight could have been stopped like 3 times. I mean, the ref came in and checked on Ortega multiple times. That fight could have been stopped. So, yeah, I think this fight does finish inside the distance. I think Yair could potentially land a big shot early. But, yeah, Volk starts getting those takedowns, getting that ground and pound. I could see a Volk finish late. So I like violence here. Don't like the money line on Volk, minus 420 now. But I think he does get this job done. Weezy, any thoughts on the money line? Pretty wide here, but I mean, Volkanovski's pound for pound one of the best fighters. I mean, he arguably, a lot of people thought he went out there and beat Islam. So, one of the best fighters, if not the best fighter, pound for pound in the UFC. So I get it.
Yeah, it's crazy to go up a weight class against Islam Makhachev, and then when the scorecards are being read, he had a chance.
Mm-hmm.
He had a chance. So yeah, that's why he's minus 400 here. But styles always make the fights. And, and Yair Rodriguez is a very difficult opponent to deal with if you don't have the ability to go out there and wrestle. Now, when Volk first came into the UFC, everybody thought of him as a wrestler. He was dominating with his wrestling, but more and more recently, we've seen him just fall in love with the striking, and why not? It's been absolutely fantastic. But yeah, the most interesting angle here is the under, because you've got 13 fights between Yair Rodriguez and Volkanovski at the UFC level that were scheduled for 5 rounds. Very interesting stat here is that Yair Rodriguez has been scheduled for 5 rounds once more than Volkanovski has. Yair's got 7 5-round main events, while Volkanovski only has 6, right? So 6 of their 13 5-round fights have finished inside the distance. But 4 of those 13 fights were against Max Holloway. 3 of them for Volk, 1 of them for Yair. So you throw out those fights against, Max Holloway, who cannot be finished, right? Then of the 9 remaining fights, you got 6 of them that have finished inside the distance. And one of those 3 that didn't finish was Volkanovski beating 7 shades of shit out of Ortega for the full 5 rounds, and that fight could have been stopped numerous times. You're muted.
Dang it. Well, we're 2 hours and 18. It was bound to happen one time.
Yeah, that's all right.
But I was, I guess, distracted from this. I'm curious to your thoughts on this picture circulating across the internet.
That's good. Is that photoshopped or something?
No, it's a real picture.
Yeah, I'm always a big fan of the mustache. You know who he looks like? There is Jack Jenkins.
A little bit.
Is Jack Jenkins doing like a Halloween costume, trying to act like he's Volk? Because it's very believable if that's the case.
I mean,
has anybody ever seen Jack Jenkins and Alexander Volkanovski in the same room at the same time?
No, I haven't personally. I have not personally, but yeah,
that is a Jack Jenkins mustache. I kind of like it for Volk. I think maybe it's time for him to switch things up.
I mean, I don't know if this is recent. If it's recent, I have serious concerns about Volk in this fight. I'm hoping this was taken several years ago, but I guess we're gonna find out this week.
He kind of looks young there. He does look a little bit younger there.
Mm-hmm. So we'll see. But that just startled me a little bit seeing that. So we did it, Weezy. We did it. 14 fights. Chalkiest card ever? Question mark.
Dude, it's so chalky. Yeah, 4-leg parlays that are still juiced. I mean, you got to tread lightly on this card, Brady. I know you will be. I've got one bet. I don't know how many more I'm going to get to.
Yep, but hey, a lot of people like the chalky cards, the big favorites. So we'll see. We'll see if these favorites come through. One of them's gonna F up. We'll see which one it is.
Yeah, it always happens, dude.
Is it going to be Volkanovski? Is it going to be Whittaker? Is it going to be Turner? Is it going to be Bo Nickal? Niko Price? Is it going to be Jack Della? Is it going to be Yazmin Jauregui? Is it going to be Vitor Petrino, Cameron Simon, Jesus Aguilar, Ribovics, Tyara? All those are wider than minus 200 this week. It's wild.
Yeah. It's a crazy, crazy week. It's going to be difficult to find bettable lines this week. I'm doing like 14 hours of tape study on Crute Menifield, because it's like the only bettable line on the entire card.
Absolutely. All right, Weezy. Longest show ever, but it's worth it. This is a phenomenal card, one of the best cards, if not probably the best card of the year. And let the people know where they can find you. And then on top of that, your plans for this week, any special appearances, what's going on?
Nothing that I know of in terms of special appearances. We're going to be doing Just the Tip with Uncle Weezy Tuesday on my channel, 10 o'clock Central Time. Probability on the MMA Engine YouTube channel tomorrow at some point. I got friends coming over. We'll figure out the best time to do it. And then, Ask Weezy, a greasy 4-leg parlay. You can always find me right here on Pub Sports Radio. Keep trying to continue stacking cash tickets like flapjacks so that I can afford to put gas in my car and drive as fast away from Muhammad Mustafayev if he ever winds up on my block.
Yeah, I feel like I'm going to wake up in the middle of the night tonight and Magomed Mustafayev is just going to be standing there.
It's going to be terrifying.
It's terrifying. What a terrifying human being. More terrifying than Sergey Spivak even.
Yeah, he's a vampire, but at least, you have to invite him in. Magomed wouldn't even knock.
No. So, good show, Weezy. Thank you all so much for watching. If you guys could do us a favor, leave a like on the way out, subscribe to the channel. I did post my full card breakdown prediction video already. Check that out. And I'll be getting out more content throughout the week. Like Weezy said, probability tomorrow, MMA Engine. Back here for the DFS show Wednesday. Wednesday, I'll be doing 3 live shows. I'll be doing Best Bet Wednesday, 7 Eastern. The DFS show 9 Eastern on Pub Sports Radio, and then at 10 Eastern is going to be Addicted to Combat on Patrick's show Wednesday night. So check all that out, and best of luck for UFC 290. Enjoy the fight. Should be a good one, and talk to you guys later. See you.